We are in the south of Paris at Neurospin, at 12 kilometers from the Eiffel Tower and in the campus of University Paris-Saclay. And I am very pleased to welcome you to the Neurospin, which belongs to the CEA, the Atomic Center of Energy.
Welcome to this e-conference dedicated to an original learning expedition, a unique journey to the French health technologies, and specifically the technologies and platforms developed and supported by the CEA, the French Alternative Energies and Atomic Energy Commission. If this institution is well known in France, it's not always the case abroad, and its services and capacities remain sometimes unknown, even to some pharmaceutical industry. Yet there were here, where we are filming now, where I'm talking to you, there were two world firsts, two world premiere. And maybe you saw that on the slide just at the end of the movie, at the beginning of this conference. ESULT is the most powerful MRI with 11.77 Tesla dedicated to the whole body imaging, human body. And there is another MRI, the 17.2 Tesla MRI for preclinical studies, and this is the most powerful horizontal MRI ever. The purpose of this conference is to let everyone know about these capacities and about these platforms, and to bring together the top-level scientists of the CEA and health industry. Yet the entrepreneurial spirit is very strong at CEA. As early as 1972, its first startup was created, and in 1985, the first incubation capacity. Today, CEA is currently able to launch 6 to 10 startups per year with very promising survival rates. We will focus on this entrepreneurial spirit during the first part of this conference, with examples and a roundtable with a panel of CEA and health industry representatives. Besides startups, Paris-Saclay is a dynamic ecosystem with various expertise and a wide range of platforms and services provided by CEA. In the second part of this conference, we'll explore the cutting-edge research in imaging, the multi-omics integration, and digital health examples. A second roundtable will focus on interface with industry. At last, during the last part of the conference, we'll talk about technological innovation for phase 0 and translational medicine. Once more, a last panel will gather experts from CEA and from health industry to explore how imaging, animal capacities, and innovative therapies research platforms could help industry tomorrow. Thank you to all of you to be connected in France and from Boston. It's the reason why we speak English during the whole conference. And I know that you're hundreds, and you will attend, I think, the conference in live from Paris, from Neurospin, from Saclay. And during the roundtables, you will be invited to participate and to ask your own questions. For that, you find a button just on the top right of your screen. Ask your questions. You can use it whenever you want. And during the roundtables, you will ask your questions, and I will relay them to the panelists. Now it's time to dive into the conference and to open with the opening speech. And at first, I will invite Mr. Olivier Bogillot. Let's come on the stage, thank you. I remind that you're chairman of the French Federation of Health Industry, FEFIS, and president of Sanofi France. Mr. Bogillot.
Thank you very much, everyone. Hi, everyone, those online, those who are here at the conference center. I'm obviously very pleased to introduce this conference, and I want to thank first François-Jacques for his invitation, and also all those in his team who made this event possible, so especially Marco Fiorini and the ARIS team. When we met together with François Jacques 2 years ago, we had a discussion about life science, and he told me that life science was a strategic priority of CEA because there is the good skills and capabilities in this structure to really move forward science and probably discover and produce innovation for the future. This discussion was before the COVID. And I think that the COVID situation changed the game and at least show that the strategic priority chosen by the CEA is actually a strategic priority for France, but also for Europe and probably for the world. We saw during the COVID situation that science came from Germany. The production was developed in the US by Pfizer for the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. We did in France some research and production from other vaccines. It was a global reaction to a global pandemic, and everyone was totally convinced after this crisis that we have to invest deeply in life science. I think that, you know, as a chairman of FEFIS, I have a kind of responsibility to ensure that we have the right level of attractivity in France for research in healthcare. And as I'm used to say, attractivity starts with talents. We need to generate some talents in the academic center. We have to make them grow. And we have also to make sure that those talents move from research to entrepreneurship. We need to move, and this is a cultural transformation that we need to develop in France, especially, where we have super good talents, we have super good researchers, but we have to move also to this entrepreneurship spirit that will probably develop the next generation of companies in France in the healthcare sector. If I talk about attractivity, it's also because I think that we need different ingredients to have an attractive country or even continent if I think about Europe. I talk about talents. We need also research, development, and production. And to do that, I'm fully convinced that we need a public-private partnership at all the stages to accelerate and foster research, development, and production. This is essential for attractivity. Another very important thing for attractivity is the IP stuff, the patent. We need to train our people, to train our companies to make sure that we have a very strong IP, and I count also on the European regulation to preserve the IP that we have in Europe, so we can protect the companies that will start to innovate in healthcare for sometime quite long period and make sure that they have a return of investment. We had debate those days about IP, especially after the COVID, and I think this is an important debate to have. Two other elements are super important for attractivity, and this is, I know that Boston is connected and Boston knows that by heart. This is about reglementation and regulation. Reglementation is super important to be attractive, and recently we had a very deep discussion with the French government and also with Europe to see how we can foster the attractivity of our country and our continent on different things, especially on clinical trials. We need to be super rapid when it comes to first-in-man and clinical development, and to do that, we need definitely a reglementation where we compete at the right speed, at the right level globally. When it comes to regulation, it's much more difficult, especially after a crisis like this one, where we have deficit in our sickness fund or social system, and but it's totally key. Without growth, we won't have in the future investment. Everything is related. Talent, research, development, IP, and then regulation. But without growth in a continent or in a country like France, we won't have the investment at the right level. So that's why, as a chairman of la FEFIS, I try with my colleagues and most of you here in this room to make sure that we work in partnership with centers like le CEA, with definitely one of the top in the world, but also partnership with the government and different academic centers, so we can do what has been done in Boston in the past, building an ecosystem where we are able to bring life science to the next level. And I'm pretty sure that when I looked at the summary of the agenda of the program that we have today, that you will have all the opportunity to see the science, the companies, the startups that we have here, and the science is super strong at the CEA. I hope that, François, we will have a very good journey, as it is mentioned on the title, a unique journey for the best of healthcare technology. Thank you very much, and enjoy this conference. Bye.
Thank you very much, Olivier Bourguignon, for this first introduction speech. And now I give the floor to you, Mr. François Jacques. You are chairman of the CEA, who welcome us here today. Thank you.
So, hi to everyone, and thanks to Olivier for his kind words and his introduction. Welcome here. Welcome for this first learning expedition. I was quite struck by this idea of learning expedition. I think that's a very interesting motto, because it brings together the best of the past. That is expedition as we meant it in the 19th century, you know, Humboldt or people like that, and what we are experiencing now in the 21st century, and on an expedition for what we don't know exactly what, but we have to discover it. So very pleased to take part. Very pleased also to welcome here this initiative by Aris. I think that's very symbolic for us. Very symbolic to be the first chosen to do so. Very symbolic to be in Saclay. Saclay, a major French university where we want really to promote, enhance an ecosystem, a cluster of various competencies, and I think that's a good sign to be, as was mentioned in introduction, in Neurospin with a major, let's say, flagship of what we can achieve in terms of technology, research, and so on. So I don't want to describe what is CEA that was done, at least partially previously, but maybe I can stress one point. CEA is what in my, let's say, European language I would call a RTO, Research and Technology Organization. What does it mean? That means a place where you've got a convergence between science, technology, technological platform, industry, users, market, and also regulation to be able to decipher what are the solutions for the future, for the main societal stakes we have in the coming years. We are not unique in Europe. Think of Fraunhofer Gesellschaft in Germany, think of TNO in the Netherlands, or VTT in Finland, or Catapult in the UK, and so on. But this model is very at the heart of what CEA is doing. To what do we apply this model? We've got a strategy with three main pillars. Energy transition. Obviously, we are coming from the nuclear, so we are interested in energy. IT revolution and health. And at first, when I was explaining this strategy, people were wondering, CEA doing energy, that was clear, just because of nuclear, atoms, and so on. IT, that was a bit less clear, but anyway, microelectronics, people were knowing that we did that in the past. But health, that was, well, there are hospitals, there are INSERMs, or people like that. And what I wanted to stress is what CEA can bring to this issue. That is not just only being interested in health for health, but bringing an added value. And the added value is to bring together what we can do in the field of micro and nanotechnologies, what we can do in the field of data, what we can do in the field of simulation, modelization, and so on. And that combined with very fundamental competencies, expertise in the field of biology, genomics, and so on. And that's what makes CEA unique, not a competitor of other French organizations, but clearly a place where we can achieve something using our model of RTO and applying it to health issues. And I don't want to enter into too many details about what we are doing, but let's just know that Olivier was speaking of patents. We are the first public French actors in terms of novel patent each year. We've also track record in terms of creating startups in the field of health science, 22. That's 10% of the overall number of startups we created, but nevertheless, that's important. Obviously, those technological platforms where we can bring together the technology of the nuclear, the technology of microelectronics, but also the best practices in terms of biology, all that make, I think, a model where, and that here comes the point of the talents and here comes the point of the attractivity. I think we have to make it better known, because I think that's not obvious for everyone that CEA is working in this field. And I think that we have a lot to win on both sides, because if we are able to build those connections, if we are to build this intertwined approach between industry, between hospitals, between physicians, between patients, and also between engineers and scientists. And I must say that in CEA, engineers or scientists, that's the same. We do not make a great divide between both. That's another sign of what we are. If we can achieve that, I think we will be able to be a hallmark in the French landscape. So that's clearly something we already have some successes, but many things are still to be done. But in any case, I'm hopeful that a journey, in a sense, because this expedition is a journey like that, will help us to enhance this approach. And I hope what I said, if not demonstrated, at least gave you some indication that we qualify, in a sense, for this learning expedition. And I hope all the scientists here, all the engineers here will be very proud to show you what CEA can do, what CEA achieved, and probably trigger some new ideas in terms of what could be done in the coming years. So again, thanks to all the organizers, and very proud to have this expedition here in Saclay. Thanks for having us, we would say, on television and radio, but I'm sure it will be fruitful half journey, because we don't know if it's morning or if it's afternoon. So thanks again.
Thank you very much, François-Jacques, for this introduction and for welcoming us. Indeed, morning, afternoon, depends on where we are. Now it's time to step into the conference in itself and to have some more information about what you call the CEA entrepreneurial spirit. And before having a first round table and to discuss with partners, people involved in the platforms of the CEA and industry, we will have a few hints and more focus on platforms and capacities which are available here in CEA, and especially here in Saclay and Neurospin. And to start, we will listen to Henri Benet and Thomas Journiot. They will present through a short video report their startup, Ceres Brain Therapeutics.
I am Thomas Journiot, the president and co-founder of Ceres Brain Therapeutics. Ceres Brain Therapeutics is a young pharma company tackling untreated cerebral diseases. Ceres Brain combines the development of prodrugs of creatine against cerebral energy deficiencies and an innovative platform of drug administration using the nose-to-brain pathway. As a reminder, creatine is the energy factor of the cell, also involved in several cellular mechanisms leading to better neuronal transmission and less neuronal loss. Cerebral deficiency is very debilitating for patients. This encompasses rare diseases such as creatine transporter deficiency syndrome and other more common diseases such as familial forms of Parkinson, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and Huntington disease. Lowering disease progression as well as improving the daily tasks are the objectives of cerebral-brain medicines. More specifically, children suffering from the creatine transporter deficiency will have a better life with more learning capabilities and more social interactions.
I am Henri Bénèche, the General Manager and co-founder of ceRESBrain Therapeutics. ceRESBrain shows that its lead compound, CBT101, is able to deliver a very significant amount of creatine inside neurons of cynomolgus monkeys after multiple dosing by the intranasal route. CBT101 is also able to increase the brain functioning using an in vivo imaging techniques, as well as to restore cognitive functions of cow mice suffering from the creatine transporter deficiency syndrome. CBT101 also protects the dopamine production by tenfold and improves balance and behavior in a rat model of Parkinson's disease. The CA has been providing ceRESBrains with expertises in chemistry, neuropharmacology and neuroimaging for several years thanks to a collaboration agreement. These expertises are highly valuable for ceRES programs. ceRESBrains combines two unique and attractive know-hows relevant both for pharma companies and VCs. Indeed, ceRESBrain is the very first able to provide neurons with creatine as energy supplementation.
Let's carry on this expedition journey and let's discover another startup. This is now Teranexus with Mathieu Chevariat.
I am Mathieu Chevariat, the Chief Scientific Officer of Teranexus company. Teranexus is a French biopharmaceutical company that has been created 9 years ago by Franck Mouton, our CEO, and me as Chief Scientific Officer. We are a team of 20 people devoted to the development of drug candidates to be used in the treatment of neurological disorders. In a nutshell, Teranexus is pioneer in the development of drugs acting on neuron-astrocyte interactions with a portfolio of 4 drugs in clinical stage and an innovative drug discovery platform. Teranexus has a pipeline of 4 drugs. Our main asset has been licensed from a US foundation, BBDF, and is designed to treat a terrible pediatric disease, Batten disease. 3 of the other drugs have been identified with our drug discovery platform. Over the past 2 years, we have been deploying a new drug discovery platform called Neurolid in collaboration with the CEA and the Collège de France to extend our technological capabilities. We bear in mind the number of patients suffering from neurological disorders, more than 1 billion people. And as an example, approximately just in France, 2 million patients have been diagnosed with neurological rare disease. We are building a pipeline of high-value clinical candidates in various CNS disorders. Our aim is to develop those drugs as far as possible and to reach our market, either through the out-license of our assets to large industrial partners or through market approval by health agencies and their commercialization. On this road, we also focus on the creation of value for our investors, whom we thank for the confidence they placed in us. Franck and I are former neuroscientists of the CEA, and in our group, we were able to identify the significant role that non-neuronal cells, also called astrocytes, play in cerebral functions. And we were, with the CEA, the first to protect the idea that targeting those cells and their interaction with neurons might be a way to tackle CNS disorders. The CEA strongly supported our work from the beginning of the company and even after through different channels, through Supernova Invest and with scientific collaboration.
Mathieu Charveria is back in a few minutes because he will be in live during the first roundtable and we'll discuss more about this incredible startup, Terranexus. Let's discover now venom cure with Nicolas Gilles.
My name is Nicolas Gilles and my scientific interest is focused on the exploration and exploitation of animal toxins. Animal toxins have been evolving since millions of years to acquire now high pharmaceutical qualities useful for human benefits. Identifying a toxin in the venom is a needle in a haystack problem. To overcome these difficulties, we have created the largest library of toxins compatible with high-throughput screening. This library of 3,600 toxins screened on 4 therapeutic targets gave an extraordinary hit rate of 3%. This hit rate is 100 times higher than the classical one obtained with artificial molecules, demonstrating the power of the natural peptide. Specialists in the cardiorenal axis, our purpose is to develop original, safe, and efficient toxin-derived drugs compatible with personalized medicine. Thanks to the scientific environment of the CEA, we master all the steps from toxin identification to the in vivo proof of concept. 10 years ago, we put our attention on the type 2 vasopressin receptor expressed in the kidney. Blocking these receptors is a validated therapeutic strategy for 2 diseases, hyponatremia and the polycystic kidney disease. Unfortunately for patients, the only approved drugs have many concerns and 95% of patients are not currently treated. We identified in the snake venom the most selective, safe, and effective antagonist of this receptor. After 10 years of research, we optimized this peptide in terms of affinity and risk of immunogenicity. In few months, I will create the startup company V4Cure to initiate the clinical development of this new drug candidate called 232. V4Cure will first validate 232 in humans for hyponatremia, a condition requiring acute treatment for hospitalized patients. In a second phase, we will associate the 232 with a medical device in order to propose personalized medicines for patients suffering from polycystic kidney disease. Indeed, this pathology requires the chronic treatment and the posology depend on the patient's lifestyle. With a controlled mode of administration, patients will receive the right dose at the right time for minimal side effects and maximal compliance. The identification of a good therapeutic target is a really delicate task. We are open for collaborations with pharmaceutical industries to combine both expertise and speed up the development of future drugs.
And to finish this tour of some of the most promising French startups of CEA, we're going to listen to Benoît Lara. He will introduce for us Terrasonic.
Hello, I'm Benoît Lara, physicist at Neurospin, a CEA neuroimaging facility. I'm leading the project called Terrasonic, a future CEA spin-off. To date, many brain diseases remain incurable. The main bottleneck for the development of new drugs for central nervous system is the blood-brain barrier. Indeed, 95% of the small molecules and almost all biologics cannot reach the brain efficiently. In my research team, we've been working for the last 10 years on the new technology capable of significantly increasing drug delivery to the brain through the blood-brain barrier. To do so, we combine the injection of gas-filled microbubbles, already FDA approved, with pulsed transcranial ultrasonic waves. Under specific conditions, this creates a transient and local disruption of the blood-brain barrier only where ultrasound are focused. The use of ultrasound is non-invasive and can be targeted transcranially to the area where drugs are needed. Once open, the blood-brain barrier recovers within hours, leaving enough time for administered molecules to engage their CNS targets. This represents a complete change of paradigm in neuropharmacology, since many drugs can now be repositioned and repurposed for neuro application. Being able to increase drug concentration where the disease lies is a key factor in order to cure it. This is exactly what Terasonic offers. Above 100 million neurodegenerative disease patients are expected by 2050, costing trillions to the society. There is an urgent need for innovative and original therapeutic approaches, such as the ones combining physical and biochemical technologies. Our aim is to bring a new tool to extend patient life in good health and good autonomy at an acceptable cost. We have extensively tested our BBB disruption technology on rodents and on non-human primates with successful results for the improved delivery of many kinds of molecules, from imaging contrast agents to nanoparticles, monoclonal antibodies, and viral vectors. We also got several convincing results showing therapeutic efficacy in various pathological models in the fields of neuro-oncology, Alzheimer's, as well as rare diseases. Based on these results, we developed a prototype of a new medical device designed to make this technique easier to be adopted by medical staff and patients. Our device is well suited for chronic ambulatory treatments with a fast and patient-friendly procedure without compromising safety nor targeting accuracy. We propose partnerships with pharma industries to help your drugs better engage their CNS targets, that is to say, make them more efficient and safer.
So I think we got a great view of the entrepreneurial spirit of CA through a few examples of startups which were created here at the CA. And now we're going to discuss further about this spirit and the French startup ecosystem. To introduce this discussion, we have a great panel. We already listened to you, I remind you, Mathieu Charveria, CSO of Terranexus. Then we have Laurence Petit. You are Director for Innovation and Startup of CEA. Celia Hart, you are General Partner Supernova Invest. Catherine Georges, Vice President of Paris-Saclay R&D site of Ipsen. And Corinne Blaché-Poisson, your General Manager at Amgen. As we listened to you just a few minutes ago and that you started explaining Terranexus, it's about 20 people today, and you got an IPO 3 years ago, and you are one of the most typical startup created in CA. You own a lot to CA. Can you tell us about this story together?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. So first of all, thanks to the CEA for this great opportunity to present the company and to present perhaps into more details the interaction that we've got with the CA that made us like the company we are today. So perhaps just a few years back, I was a PhD student in the CEA. We were working on prion disease, Creutzfeldt-Jakob, mad cow disease, and we were trying to understand how things work in the brain in this indication. And on this road, we identified a way to increase the efficacy of drugs active on neurons. And it was back in 2007 and 2008 at this time. And the CEA asked us what we would like to do with the technology, whether to find an industrial partner to which we might license the technology, or to create a company to try and build the case by ourselves. So we decided with Franck Mouton, which is our CEO, which was my boss at the CEA, to create the company. And it was quite a long road between 2008 and the creation of the company 5 years after that. And it was a road that was in which we were completely accompanied by the CEA in terms of funds to continue our research in the lab, with the help of course, the scientists from the CEA, with the help of Supernova Invest. We will hear Celia Hart, which was quite at the beginning of this road, always helpful to create the company and to give advised to go as far as possible. And we created the company in 2013. We were able to raise funds 1 year after that with Supernova Invest and other funds at this time. We continue to collaborate with plenty lab for the SERA. We've worked with SHFG. We will hear people from this lab during the day. We work with Neurospin as well. We've worked with Mirsen. We have a platform, R&D platform with Mirsen ongoing for the moment. We work with Grenoble SERA, Grenoble as well. So we continuously try to work with the SERA. And I think what is important is to see, as it has been detailed before, how the SERA is able to push innovation, to push drugs, to push targets as far as possible, and to be able to transfer the rights of use of those new technologies to industrial partners. And a few years after that, we went public through an IPO, still with the support of Supernova Invest. And the company continues to build its pipeline with different kind of collaboration. But I think the company, the partners that we always try and work with is the SERA, of course, as you know, since plenty of scientists are working on different fields. And constantly when we want to find kind of an innovation or a new technology, we try and seek whether or not this is supported by the SERA or not. So I think it's a great opportunity for me to thank the SERA for everything that has been put on the company and that explain where we are now in the company. So thank you.
Thank you. It's a great homage. I think it's a good transition. You're still hosted in CEA facilities, in Fontenay-aux-Roses. It proves the great connection with the institution. And by the way, you quoted Laurence several times because you're head of innovation division of CEA, and it includes in particular business creation activities. So you know very well Teramixus. It's a good example of what you try to enhance and to create here in CEA.
Yes. Hello, Fabrice. Hello, everybody. And maybe thank you first to the organizers, and in particular Iris, for this quite exceptional opportunity to talk about startups at CEA. Indeed, maybe as an introduction, I would like to provide some key messages about startups, and it's really in relation with what has been said before. First key message is that startups at CEA are really a long story, and I think we can say that CEA has been a forerunner in this field. You mentioned it in the introduction. The first startup was created in 1972.
50 years ago. It's a great birthday.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
50 years ago.
We have today more than 220 startups at CEA. From 1985, we structured our spin-off activities in order to provide favorable reshoring conditions for our researchers to help them creating their business. And in 1999, something which is also very important for us, is that we created a specific subsidiary called CE1 Investissement, subsidiary which has the ability to support financially our startup, and which is this subsidiary is today operated by Supernova Invest, with whom we have a strong collaboration today. So first message, really a long story in terms of startups. Second key message maybe about our positioning on startups. Our startups are around three main areas: digital, energy, and health, as fair nexus. And most of our spin-offs are based on major breakthrough technologies with strong societal impact. And maybe a last and third message about our startups. We create not that many startups, 6 to 10 startups a year, but something which is to me very important is that we have a very qualitative portfolio. For instance, we have a 5-year survival rate of over 90%, which is rather exceptional. And well, we have several examples of new startups in the videos before. Maybe I can quote some successful startups in the health field as well. So of course we have Fear and Access. We have also Diabeloop, which is a startup specialized in an automated system to deliver insulin to treat type 1 diabetes. We have also Remedy Labs, which is a specific bracelet with an endorphin stimulator to treat chronic pains. And SkyMap Biotherapeutics to develop antibodies for oncology applications.
Good. We'll go back to on some of these startups, but I see that there are already a few questions which are asked through the platform, so thank you very much. Don't forget, you can ask your questions with the top right button on your screen, and we already have 3 questions for you, Mathieu, I think, because it's a bit focused on your startup. I think people are interested. I will go back to you with some of these questions, but now let's make a link between both of you, because it's very original, but CEA has its own investment structure. I may say partly CEA. You are directly connected to CEA, and you are here to help build financial issues for the startups.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much for the invitation as well. It's a great pleasure to be here today, and I think a lot has been said already. So maybe let me start where we are today, just very briefly. So today our name is now Supernova Invest. Used to be CA Investissement. We manage about a bit less than 500 million. We've invested in more than 100 companies. We're about 20 people between Grenoble and Paris, and we very much actually have a positioning which is linked to our history with the CA. So what is called namely deep tech, so strong innovation, bringing to product and services competitive advantages, and obviously serving markets where there are major needs. And healthcare is really part, of course, of our activities, not the only part. So very much we match what has been said about the CA previously. So activity in information technology, energy and environment, but also healthcare. And we believe, and we're quite different, I think, from other investment company. We like the fact that we are not specialized. We basically have teams who are ultra specialized, but we like the fact that we cover activities where today in innovation there's a lot of bridges, there's a lot of synergy, and there's a lot of innovation when you combine activities and sectors and technologies. So that's pretty much where we are today, but the story, like always, is a long story, and it's a story that actually started at the CA in 1999, and as I think Laurence already told the beginning of the story, the CA created a tool and was quite a pioneer in that way in order to support its startups, invest in its startups, launch them. So beyond the tool, there was, of course, the money, but beyond that, there's all the, the structure to accompany these startups that the CA had internally and continues to have internally. And where we come in the picture is we operate, if you will, that tool. It's now an investment company. And from something that was super focused in the year 2000s on microelectronics and CA, started to be diversified in saying we need to also go on healthcare, on energy environment, and started to be further diversified in saying actually the model is really working very well. We are driving the innovation in France. Let's do it outside of the CA. And I think, again, the CA was, that's my opinion at least, very innovative in that it decided we should actually open that tool and let other investors also come in that tool in order to leverage what we can bring. So, there was this, and this is when we became independent in 2017. However, the CA is an extremely important sponsor. It's a shareholder. It's a sponsor of our funds. It's extremely present, and I think the links remain strong because there's amazing innovation in the CA. But I think also just because of human factors, you get to know people, you get to know how to work with them. You understand complementaries, and that we work in a very complementary way, basically. So and yes, we did fund Theranexis, and we've got a very nice portfolio of startups in the healthcare in general.
So we have a great view of what happened to you, and it's good. And of course, links with industry, because you need industry and industry investments and interest in the startups you try to launch. And so I think that Ipsen and even Amgen are not really involved in some of your startups today, but maybe it could happen. And the idea of this conference, by the way, is to try to make bridges and to try to bridge between CEA, entrepreneurial spirits, and industry. This is the reason why we got some representatives here. We're not involved yet, but Catherine Georges, Vice President of Paris-Saclay R&D site of Ipsen, you are very much involved in this entrepreneurial spirit because you support startups and you work with startups anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks a lot to CEA and Aris for organizing this conference. Very happy to be here today to talk about collaboration with startups. Ipsen is an international biotech company with French roots. We innovate in 3 main therapeutic areas, and that might build a link with CEA, one being neuroscience, of course, but also oncology and rare disease. And entrepreneurship for us is can be maybe summarized in 3 words that some of our colleagues here already talked about. First of all is the innovation. You need to experiment, and then you need to collaborate. And we already talked about cooperation or collaboration, and the collaboration means that in the ecosystem we need to be in an ecosystem of innovation when there are academic partners, startups, of course, to be able to share a common vision and find the partnership which is aligned with our vision, and ultimately the means which is to care about patient and bring the innovation to the patient. And we shouldn't forget about the fact that the best innovation is the one that goes to the patient.
So just to have a better idea of what you did exactly, last year you got 6 collaborations. 2 of them were French biotechs, that's right?
Yeah, so Ipsen rely strongly on external innovation, so collaboration with startups. So that's we have internal research in toxins. However, the other innovation is coming through our collaborative partnership with startups, and hence the reason why we are here today, I guess. And we our research center are really based where innovation is in ecosystem of innovation, such as Paris-Saclay. Our French R&D center is in Courtabœuf, but also Boston and Oxford in the UK. And really, the Boston area is an ecosystem where it's easy to partner with academic and startups. So it's in some way it's a bit of a model for us that we would like to be extended to other places such as France, of course.
Of course, and let's of course say a little hello to Boston, which is connected with us. The same kind of spirit for you, Corinne Blachier-Poisson, General Manager at Amgen. You also use the ecosystem, the general ecosystem. You even have a investment fund, which is Amgen Venture. So of course you are very close to startup spirit too.
Yes, thank you. So thank you to the organizers for inviting me. Of course, the Amgen was a startup 42 years ago. Huh? It was.
Let's remember.
Yeah. So because when I'm listening to the stories from these startuppers, I am also. Resonates for an Amgen person because we are always listening to the story of these 2 biologists who were from the UCLA University, and they were believing in the potential of biology for developing drugs, which was very innovative at that time. And today, of course, we have nothing to do with a startup because it's more than 20,000 of staff, employees over the world, 25 billions of sales. But
makes you dream, no?
So it's a perfect example of a success story. It's probably the biggest success story in all biotech.
Yeah.
Still, I am trying in my affiliate, because I am the general manager for the French affiliate, I am trying to keep this startup mindset, which is really definitely something kind of a spirit that I think is different from the big pharma. So now our headquarters are still close to the UCLA University and still very close to all the US ecosystem, which is extremely rich of many, many companies. Now they have always been collaborating with many companies, and today our portfolio of commercialized drugs is 50% made of in-house drugs and 50% of external opportunities, external contract drugs which have been acquired during different phases of development. So this is a permanent search for interesting platforms, and mainly in the US, but there are also activities of business development in Europe. And this is, so we have two types of activities. As you mentioned, Amgen Venture, which is looking at any type of investment from a financial point of view, what can be interesting in the healthcare area, and the business development, which is looking at opportunities for the three therapeutic areas, which are currently, because it can evolve, but it doesn't evolve every 6 months, oncology, inflammation, and cardiology, metabolism. And of course, for example, for cancer, we can be interested in any research in the pathogenesis of a disease, of any research on biomarkers in many in different types of cancer genomics. So we have a large, a very broad search of companies which can be interesting for different aspects of our research and development.
So it leads to a question, and for you too, Katrina. Were you aware of the opportunities and what is possible to do with CA today, and through examples we saw, through platforms in which we are, for example, today, Neurospin?
So we started effectively to search for collaborations in France only 2 years ago, and of course CA was on our list, but I can really say that today...
Why so lately? Why did you wait so late to invest in France?
In fact, we are very active in development activities, clinical research, which is very classical. Now we are a very US-centric company, I must admit. So this is why we thought with the European management that it was the right time to leverage the French ecosystem as in other European markets, that it could be the right moment now to look at some opportunities, and because also this is why it's so important to have positive signals from the governments and I think that communication like the CIS 2030 is quite positive communication towards the US companies' headquarters to say, okay, healthcare is really a strategy priority for our industry, for our markets, for our healthcare system. We have to invest. We invest locally and we are open to collaboration.
Does it mean that you pay great attention to the current national election in France?
Yes, yes, of course.
It could change some of your priorities and choices?
I hope that the XIS 2030 will stay the same and that we will keep doing what has been decided, because we cannot change things every 5 years. It's a long-term vision which is required, and people who keep doing what has been decided, not spend time talking about what we should do, but do things that we have decided to do.
And what about you, Catherine, about the CA and the general French spirit?
So CA is well known in France. This is known as a center of excellence in science, in technology. This is absolutely clear. It's an area where it's a center where you bring biologists, engineering, but it's seen, at least for Ipsen, it was seen more as an area where you bring up startup in the engineering field, or in the diagnostic field, or in the imaging field, than in pharma business in reality. Even though Terra Nexus is well known in France as one of the very successful startup that took roots from CA. So we have collaboration with CA, but not through startups. Much more on what can we use in the research biology field, in neuroscience for imaging, preclinical model, immunology, where also CA is well known. But it's until recently. It was not the main. It's the main area where we were looking for startups, but it is changing for sure.
It's changing now. So just at the end of the day, you will sign a few contracts, if I understand correctly. So Mathieu, there was a question about the French ecosystem, but you get some questions from the US. I think it must be from Boston. Thank you, Boston, for answering for questions. How do you work with the US ecosystem?
Okay, so thank you for the question. So I think perhaps it's one way to think about what happened at the beginning of the company. So we were scientists. We had this technology. We were thinking to develop drugs in neurological disorders and to push them on the American market at the end, because we know that in neurology, the majority of the market is in the States. So at this time, we were trying to put the drugs towards clinical, toward industrial standards, but we had no idea that even those standards exist at this time. And I think it's complex for entrepreneurs to try and learn by doing just alone. So at this time, we recruited plenty of people that knew how to develop drugs and how to push them in the development in Europe and in American country. And for us to work with the US ecosystem is, and I will take the example of our first drug, which is a drug dedicated to Batten disease, which is an orphan disease. We are only developing this drug in the States for the moment. So we've taken the drug. It's a NIL license, as you mentioned. It's a license from an American foundation. We put the drug to industrial standard, meaning we've done all the toxicology profile and so everything to be able to discuss with the FDA at the good level, with the good level of interaction. So we have different kind of US-based experts to help us on that. We were able to get the IND, which is the green light to test the drug in a clinical development by the American system. And now we are testing the drug in patients. We've included different kind of patients which are over 17 years old in this indication. And so it's kind of an ongoing process with the US system that we are discovering and working with.
Okay, there are some other questions for you. We'll go back to you, but we talk about the US, and Laurence Petit, the problem is that very often we hear that startups in France have to be founded with US companies or sometimes from abroad, but it's very hard and difficult to get funded in France. So it's a question for both of you. So how do you account for that? What's the problem with this spirit and the aim at investing in France by French companies sometimes?
Well,
don't struggle, don't fight, don't fight. Yeah.
I'll take over. Okay, I can start and
Okay.
Celia will go on. Well, yes, obviously, it is a real concern in France, in particular for technological startup, because they need a lot of money for a long time in order to develop their business. I would say that concerning the first steps for the early stage for first fundraising, I would say that the situation has clearly improved for several years. It's still an issue, but I think we can say that the situation is really better. I think there is still an issue for industrialization because the money to go to industrialization they need really a big amount of money. And for instance, we have, just to give you an example, we have a quite successful startup at CA, which is called Lydia, but it's not in the healthcare, it's on wireless technology, but they opened their first factory in the southeast of France recently, and they have to raise around 300 million euros to do so that the amount of money that is needed. So I think maybe there is an issue on the industrialization for technological startups today. And I think it's more or less the same in all technological fields, including health.
It's important to get a great deal of money, so it's difficult to find it in France, or essentially in France, and to keep finally the intellectual property and patents and to remain French. What about your, I think, 236 startups, that's it, you created in CA?
Yeah, more or less.
More or less.
Yes.
Okay, and so you co-built from some of them, and you helped finance lots of them. What about this issue? What about investment from US, from France, difficulties you have?
Well, I think I agree with Laurence. I think things have improved a lot in France over the last probably 20 years. First of all, I think investment has become much more professional and has caught up actually with US and I would say probably UK practices, because it was the most advanced kind of country in Europe. So it has progressed, so it's become more professional. And there's many more funds, and not only what we call equity, so funds to invest in capital, but France has an amazing tool of public funding. I mean, what people never talk about is the fact that people come to France actually because you have tax kind of advantages when you create a startup on R&D, and you also have all sorts of non-dilutive funding. So basically it's loans or grants that allow you to start. So I think to start a company, the ecosystem in terms of I would say money is quite amazing. Further down the line is true, maybe we need more money on industrial phases. That's true. However, I mean, there's been some actually massive investment funds raised recently in the healthcare, like JETO or LSP. These are European funds. You're talking about funds of 500 million to 1 billion. So, I think Europe in general is catching up. And then anyway, I think especially in the healthcare, companies almost become international from day one. You may do your seed fund with French investors because there's proximity, and I think the culture is very important at that moment, because you have to, to build something, to build a team. But once you start raising further down the line, Series Bs or Series C, then very naturally, anyway, the company's business itself is becoming international, starts to do clinical trials abroad, and then you start having investors that come from the US or from other European countries. So it is anyway also quite an international landscape, in terms of where the money comes from, but also where the business is done. But I would say the starting ingredients are pretty good in France.
And do you have, both of you, do you have an agenda? Do you know how much money will be invested in future startups or for external projects within few years, 5 years maybe? Catherine?
Yeah, of course, we know we have BD, and we know how much we want to invest. It's several billion that we will invest over the next few years, and we have started already in the past year. I think the question about investment and the fundraising is clearly that in the US there are more money than there are in Europe. But again, I agree with you. It's getting better, and we are seeing progress over the past, I would say, 2 years around the fact that we'll have higher level of investment than we had in the past in Europe. And I agree, at a certain level of development of a drug, it's an international business. So we have to be competitive in Europe, I would say, rather than in France. We have to be competitive against the rest of the world, and it's not only the US, it's also Asia and so on.
Corinne?
Yes, we intend to invest a lot in the coming years, but these are quite confidential data. No, I was just thinking that it's very important for a startup to think internationally quite very early in the development. And today, one of the main challenges is how to develop, once we start the clinical development, how to manage the appropriate development for the US market, which is still the biggest one, probably declining in his wage internationally, globally, still the biggest one, and with the European markets. And this is quite now we. In the last 20 years, the European markets have been integrated progressively, I would say, because of the EMA establishment. Now we still have an access process different from one country to another. We cannot underestimate that the US market is extremely fragmented for the access. And the trend in the US is in fact just the same as it is in Europe in the last 20 years. I mean, they are discovering what access means in the US. So they are learning from Europe. So today still, the priority from a regulatory point of view is to get approval from the FDA, because it gives regulatory access to the biggest market. The EMA is also the second one, and it's a benchmark for many other countries, which can be aligned. And then getting the price in the European market is also the first step for other markets. So I think there is a kind of convergence still between the US and Europe, with, for the moment, a lot of advantage for the US markets.
Okay, thank you. Well, the roundtable is nearly over, but I've just got a few questions for you, if you can answer very briefly. So one of the questions from people connected: what is your intellectual property policy?
It's a very classical IP policy. It's an IP based on the protection of the drugs in specific indications. So it's very classical IP protection for our drugs. And technologies are protected more with the know-how protection, meaning no IP, no patent, but just know-how that is with the scientists working with us in the academic lab and the scientists for the company.
Another question: do you have any application hospitals for your technologies on the Saclay Plateau?
We are more and more working on rare neurological disorders and interested in teams working on those indications in which we might test the drugs that we are developing. So if we have teams working on rare neurological disorders, I'm glad to work with them.
And the last question, very open: what can we bring you from the US?
I think it's a question for everyone.
I think it's for everyone.
Perhaps just for me to think, perhaps experienced people, because I think we are lacking people knowing how to develop drugs in the States. It's very specific, and I'm sure you know that much better than we are. So we need people who know how to do that. And the second one is perhaps money coming from the US, as you mentioned, because just another thing, because same company as Ternexus, it might be able to be on the market side with a 4 times, 5 times, 6 times more market size. Meaning that if we want to discuss with American investors, companies like Ternexus, they are under the radar because we have a very small market size compared to American companies. So I think it's interesting because perhaps you might think of more of European companies because you are able to buy innovation at a much lower price than in American companies. So it's an open just for you to come in Europe.
Thank you, Mathieu Charveria. Thank you to all of you for participating. Laurence Petit, Célia Hart, Corinne Blachier-Poisson, Catherine Georges. Thank you very much for this first round table. Now we can step into the second part of the conference. State-of-the-art innovative and health research infrastructure. And like we did for the first part, we're going to have a few video reports to enhance what is possible to do with CEA and especially platforms. And the first video report is about cutting-edge research in imaging with Fawzi Boumesber and Jean-Robert Devers, Jean-François Mangin, to express all about these imaging capacities here.
I am Jean-Robert Devers, Director of Neurospin Platform. I'm very pleased to welcome you at Neurospin. Neurospin is France's main research center for innovation in brain imaging technologies. It develops and exploits advanced methods in brain imaging and neuroinformatics in order to advance the knowledge of the brain. We welcome public or private research teams to acquire data on our large instruments, but also to analyze them. We offer pharmaceutical companies the possibility to design and develop biomarkers for their new drugs. For example, biomarkers of pathology that will make it possible to measure the efficacy of a new molecules in a patient. Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, psychiatric disorders, or more upstream on animal model. To illustrate our openness, I'm going to let 2 researchers who use a Neurospin platform speak.
Hello, I'm Fawzi Boumesber, physicist and MR scientist at Neurospin. My research is focused on developing innovative neuroimaging technologies and applying them to investigate brain metabolism and pharmacology in vivo from mice to men in normal or pathological conditions. At Neurospin, I benefit from a unique technological platform with up to 6 ultra-high magnetic field MRI scanners from 3 to 17 Tesla, as well as from an exceptional pluridisciplinary research environment with the daily interaction of physicists, image analysis and ER experts, physicians, biologists, neuroscientists, and many others. Among our many research projects, we have notably developed with our collaborators in psychiatry, Professor Franck Bellivier and Jocelyn Wenou, the MRI of lithium first in rodents and then in bipolar patients treated with lithium salts. Our goal is to use lithium MRI to investigate the still unknown action mechanism of lithium and use this new technology as a predictive biomarker of response to this first-line treatment and improve the management of newly diagnosed bipolar patients. Thanks to our promising result at 7 Tesla, we are currently working at transferring this technology at 3 Tesla to few ambitious clinical research centers throughout Europe in the context of the AirLink European H2020 project. At the same time, we are planning to push for more sensitivity and specificity by implementing this technology on our unique 11.7 Tesla ESULT MRI scanner.
Hello, I am Jean-François Mangin. I'm in charge of image analysis R&D in Neurospin. Our institute is a deep phenotyping facility. Indeed, we push MRI technology to its limit to get more insight about physiopathology. But we have also a complementary research program aiming at the stratification of the patient populations into homogeneous groups with a simpler disease causality. For this purpose, we manage a large network of imaging facilities, which is provided to the clinical community to collect more conventional images from large cohorts. This network is called CATI. It has been founded 12 years ago in the context of a national initiative on Alzheimer's disease, but it is now used for most of the brain pathologies. Today, CATI includes more than 100 MRI and PET scanners, and it is managed like a very large instrument dedicated to population imaging. In order to speed up the transfer from brain research to clinical research, we continuously work on the standardization of new imaging biomarkers from the acquisition parameters to the analysis pipelines.
And now let's focus on another incredible platform, multi-omics integration, with Jean-François Deleuze and Christophe Junot.
My name is Jean-François Deleuze. I am a research director and head of the National Research Center for Human Genomics at the CEA. Directly related to this main function, I also coordinate the GenMed Laboratory of Excellence and the R&D Center of the French Genomic Medicine Initiative, all of which aim to deploy genomics into the healthcare pathway. What really motivates me is the hope of participating in discoveries that will alleviate human disease. Our daily work consists of analyzing the human genome of thousands of patients suffering from various human diseases, whether rare or cancerous or even infectious. We have developed a unique technology platform from data generation to data analysis that allow us to interrogate all dimensions of genomics, perform the powerful multi-omic analysis that must be conducted today if we want to achieve breakthrough in many diseases. Beyond the use of existing technologies, we are closely monitoring emerging technologies, both wet and in silico, to implement them as soon as possible. This development includes, for example, the use of cell-free DNA in plasma as a surrogate tissue, or the development of mathematical approaches to make disease modeling much more credible. Thousands of patients have been fully sequenced or genotyped to study their genes, the epigenetic status of their genes, and even their gene expression. Some of these projects have already led to the discovery of new causal genes or biomarkers that can be engaged and bring therapeutic innovation in drug development programs for a group of patients, but also for personalized approaches. As example, recent successes of this collaboration include the discovery of new gene in Alzheimer's disease or the use of polygenic risk score in breast cancer diagnostics. Our national mission has led to the building of a unique network of key scientists and clinicians throughout France. Our close link with the French Genomic Medicine Initiative, but also with other national strategic plans, make us a privileged partner in the global field of future medicine. We are regularly a key partner in major European programs dealing with medical genomics. Finally, I would say that the spirit of collaboration is part of our DNA and that win-win interaction is in our mission. Thank you.
My name is Christophe Junot. I am director of the Medicines and Healthcare Technologies Department at CEA. This department is dedicated to research activities in the field of diagnostic and therapeutic innovation. I'm also the Deputy Coordinator of MetaboHub, which is the French infrastructure for metabolomics and fluxomics. My research activity deals with metabolomics, which refers to the large-scale detection, quantification, and analysis of small molecules in biological media. My teams develop high-resolution mass spectrometry-based tools to improve identification and quantification of metabolites, and thus make metabolomics data interoperable and reusable for personalized medicine projects. We also develop data science and bioinformatics tools for data processing and for integration of metabolomics data to other omics tools and clinical metadata in order to foster biological interpretation of results in a systems medicine perspective. We thus collaborate with clinical and industry teams in order to discover biomarkers of disease and also response to treatments. Our metabolomics workflows generate complex molecular signatures, enabling to stratify patients according to the severity of their disease. We are then working on how to deliver these signatures to clinical biologists and also to physicians. To this end, we are working on algorithms to simplify these signatures. We are also developing quantitative multiplex assays that can be implemented in medical laboratories, and at last, we also have skills and expertise to develop point-of-care tests if needed.
And to finish, before our second roundtable, we'll have a focus on health and digital health programs examples with Frédéric Bocard, Jean-François Mangin, Raphaël Guéroy, and Michel Masella.
I2BC is a research center where more than 500 scientists aim to decipher the organization and the functioning of living cells at different resolution, at different time scale, and in different conditions, for example during infections, pathologies, or different stresses. We use a set of complementary approaches and cutting-edge technologies to perform our studies. Our objectives are to address important questions on four major themes: the architecture and dynamics of cellular structures and their dysfunctions, the processing of genetic information and its dysfunction, the interaction between host and microbes, and the bio-inspired engineering for health, energy, and the environment. To reach these objectives, we want to implement every year 4 ambitious research programs by federating expertises from research groups and technological platforms, providing seeding resources from I2BC to each selected program, and securing mid-term funding of the project and developing partnerships. In 2021, the 4 programs concerned: the crosstalk between 2 major cytoskeletons found in eukaryotic cells, the effect of RNA modifications called epitranscriptomic marks on the cellular fate of RNA molecules, the compartmentalization of living cells in the absence of membranes, and a new engineering method to assemble macromolecular complexes with different applications.
Our institute is a deep phenotyping facility. Indeed, we push MRI technology to its limit to get more insight about physiopathology, aiming at the stratification of the patient populations into homogeneous groups with a simpler disease causality.
Our challenge is to develop a technological pipeline to predict and engineer the structures of macromolecular complexes. Those macromolecules can be natural proteins with a function in the cell that we want to optimize or inhibit. They can also be artificial proteins, so-called biologics, specialized in mediating protein-protein interactions, such as nanobodies. We are developing structural bioinformatic tools and methods to model and engineer the structures of those complexes. We have recently explored the combination of deep learning approaches with high-throughput metagenesis technologies to improve the accuracy and reliability of our predictions. This project, for instance, was supported by the Sanofi iTech Award. As an application of our design strategies, we have successfully developed protein-protein interaction inhibitors starting from a natural peptide that we managed to design with a nanomolar high affinity for its target. From there, we were able to further engineer this compound to turn it into a non-natural peptidomaine, retaining the same affinity but with a much higher stability in human serum and lower immunological responses.
Hi everybody, I'm Michel Masella. I'm working at the French Nuclear Agency and I am an expert in microscopic simulation and high-performance computing. In particular, we are developing original tools to investigate matter at the microscopic level and to understand the microscopic factor modulating the strength of the force at such level of the matter. We are already collaborating with groups like L'Oréal, personal care and cosmetics, Sanofi, industrial pharmaceutical groups, and a power supplier like EDF in France. Obviously, we will be very pleased to collaborate with you if you are interested by such tools. Thank you.
So we had a great view, another tour, if I'd say, in this learning expedition, this learning journey that we have together, and that shows us all what is possible with CEA. And we will go back, as we did during the first roundtable, to some of the examples which were presented in these videos, especially with the panelists which are around me. They are from people from CEA, which will account for more details about what was already presented, and industry, which is also represented guide and to bridge between both, as we've already started doing since the beginning of the day. Christophe Junot, head of the Medicines and Healthcare Technologies Department, Deputy Coordinator of MetaHub, and you will tell us more about MetaHub. Jean-François Mangin, you're head of the Baobab Methodological Unit in Neurospin, where we are today, and the head of the CATI National Platform for Multicenter Neuroimaging at CEA. Then Luca Molo, you're a country medical director and chief medical officer of Pfizer France. Jean-François Stéphan, Jean-Philippe Stéphan, research director in vitro pharmacology at Servier, and Ramzi Temani, am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Scientific director, head of France AI and Genomics at Janssen. Thank you to all of you to be here. Christophe, we listened to you just a few seconds during the report, and you have this incredible platform, which is one of the last omics, as we said, the omics, about metabolomics. What is it exactly?
It's an omic approach that deals with the detection of a large number of metabolites that are small molecules that are present in biological fluids. And so we have developed tools to detect all these metabolites that are putative biomarker candidates. And we are also working with mathematicians and informaticians to develop data science tools to help us going to molecular signatures.
It's a bit immature, it's a bit new, and do people know about what you're doing? Do you still have some projects and programs with industry, for example?
Yes, with industry, especially in the field of, I would say, large national programs, but also European, such as RHU programs that are funded by the Plan d'Investissement d'Avenir. So the aim is to contribute to, I would say, a new way to diagnose diseases, for example, to lead to new kinds of biopsies that are virtual biopsies that are combining, for example, molecular tools with also imaging and also clinical tools.
So you were one of the first to develop this approach in France, that's it? That's
yes,
right?
it is.
So why did you do it in CA especially? What's the, I'd say, environment and ecosystem? How did it help you?
Yeah, I think the key word is environment, because at CA, this is a unique place that groups many fields of expertise. So analytical chemistry, biochemistry, but also data science. And for example, the colleague that introduced me to multivariate statistical analysis was working in the field of nuclear energy. So you see, this is a unique place that groups many fields of expertise, and so you can capitalize on it and think about new kind of applications.
So I think it was interesting to focus on your very specific field, which is emerging and which is really exciting. And I remind you that you can ask your questions whenever you want by clicking on the top right button of your screen, and that I will, of course, ask the questions for you. Here, we carry on. We are in Neurospin. And Neurospin is probably, I think it is the best brain imaging system or capacity in the world. People say that, and we quoted two first premiere just in the introduction with the incredible machines you get here. So can you tell us more about these incredible capacities, and is it well known throughout the world?
Well, you should be aware that this outstanding capacity is still under development. This 11.7 Tesla magnet will be producing images of human maybe only in 2 years from now. So
2 years, yeah.
Okay. And the reason why this is here is just because we have outstanding physicists in the CA who develop magnets for other applications, for instance, in the CERN in Geneva, and there was an opportunity to just push the field further in terms of imaging technologies. But it's not only these machines that are here. We have also a lot of other capacities, and it's very important because here it's a melting pot of neuroscience. We have top-level neuroscientists, top-level people doing clinical research, and a lot of computer scientists too developing the tools to analyze the data that are coming out of these machines. So it's not only this outstanding instrument. We are a research center for 12 years, even if this outstanding machine is not ready yet.
So what does it change, by the way? Because it changed something attraction, capacities, new research projects?
Well, the idea is just, for instance, zooming inside the brain to see more things than what you see with standard machines.
Can you give examples? What will be possible that we can do right now?
Typically, for instance, there's a target in the field of dementia, which is hippocampus. And hippocampus are very complex structures that you just see like maybe potatoes in standard MRI. And with high-field MRI, you see the subfield of the hippocampus, and maybe you will discover some specific targets that could be of interest for trying various therapies or to monitor various therapies, things like that.
So are you going to focus on neurodegenerative pathologies and maybe psychiatric ones?
Yeah, this is the two main targets, but we also have a very specific capacity here to do imaging of infants and even babies, and so there could be other applications around that line.
So I don't know if we are all aware of that, but these magnets are just incredibly powerful, and some people think about the power, 11.7, then 17.2 Tesla. Is it dangerous when you want to put baby into the tube? Isn't it a little dangerous?
The baby just go to the 3 Tesla magnet first. And before putting somebody inside any magnets, we do a lot of studies. So you can imagine that there are animal experiments just to clarify the situations. And I mean, you know, this is a 12, maybe 20 years old project, all these stories. So of course, we just check everything we can check.
Can you remind us of the investment to build that up?
I would say grossly the 11.7 Tesla magnet is a 100 million investment.
100 million investment. Okay. Thank you. We'll go back to you. Luca Molon, as I said, you're country medical director, chief medical officer of Pfizer France. And you listened to these two examples, but you must have heard of them before, of course, I imagine, especially Neurospin. And you are very close to the startup and external ecosystem. And there is a great example that everyone heard. It was, of course, your partnership with BioNTech because of the vaccine and COVID, and everyone heard about that. So it's a great success, is what we can say otherwise. So what do you think about Pfizer today and about maybe CEA?
Yes, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. So everybody would like me to talk about the vaccines. It's too easy because now everybody knows us as the vaccine company of the COVID. But see, this is a good example. Pfizer, since now decades now, we have changed our model. First, we were betting in our own research, of course. The COVID is the good example because the treatment is coming from our own research, and of course the vaccine is the collaboration, the fruit of the collaboration with BioNTech. And for us, working with the technological platforms is key because this model is more agile than the one we can have, and it's possible to us to benefit of the close collaboration, putting together the expertise we can have in our company, but also coming from the external environment. And that's the reason why it's important to have also in affiliates people that is able to deal with these big experts, big research centers, having the capabilities to identify, to scout what can be the opportunities for us, and also, of course, taking account of the strategy of our company. And of course, this is the right strategy because it can be win-win for us as a big pharma company, and also for the research centers like CEA, but also others in the French environment. And we're talking about attractivity. The attractivity of France is huge because we have here first the intelligence, the renowned research centers, but also, it was said before, there are some dispositives that are now making France attractive. This is the reason why we heard about also this big investment we are making in France in the next 5 years, because we want to invest in the French research environment.
I'm asking you the same questions as I did at the first roundtable. Are you focused on the general election in France to see if you can go further in this strategy?
The French elections is just a step, but for us what is important is whoever will be the new president. So for us what is important is to keep and preserve this favorable environment we have, and continue to support the research, but also support the pharma companies that are investing in France. So this is very important for us.
We'll go back to you, of course. Jean-Philippe Stéphan, you're a research director in vitro pharmacologist unit Servier. And Servier, I think you work with Servier, you know very well, you're French, of course, company. Everyone knows in the French ecosystem, pharma ecosystem, Servier, so you know very well CA. And what is your connection? How do you work? Do you speak the same language with, I'd say, CA researchers from a public environment? Is it easy?
Yeah, I would think it's easy because historically Servier has maintained a lot of collaboration with the CEA. Are we speaking the same language? I'm not sure, and I'm not sure it's a requirement.
Mm-hmm.
I think the diversity is probably the biggest value. I think the two first speakers highlighted the fact that these technologies are extremely complex, and we need many experts around the table, and those experts are not speaking the same language. But the value is to make them able to exchange and develop the technology. And I think that's what we are looking for. We are looking to access to expertise that we might not have internally, because all these investments are very important. And we are not always able to have similar investment internally in our companies. They are also cutting-edge technology, which means that they will evolve very rapidly. So obviously, investment are more risky. And sometimes the applications are not clearly defined, and we need to investigate that together. There is the technology and what the technology could offer, and there is the need. What do we need for our research, for our patients? So that's how we need to interact together.
Yes, you must be very close to clinics, and you must have, of course, a great time.
Absolutely.
Quick innovation, that's it, it's important for you. Could you detail a little bit the projects, and you can talk about them together, that you have with, for example, metabolomics platforms or Neurospin?
So with metabolomics, I think it's more like involving my colleagues in Orléans who are involved with DMPK. And definitively we are looking at metabolites of our drugs, try to identify if there is any active or toxic metabolites that could be generated through the metabolism of patients. So these are absolutely critical in our ability to develop the drug and make it one day a viable drugs for patients. So this is one type of collaboration.
This is in a preclinical approach or beginning of clinical phase one? No?
Both, but or rather preclinical. But for example, we are both involved in a RSU program dedicated to liver biopsies for diabetic patients having NASH, and so that address both the clinical and preclinical sides.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is other interests that are maybe earlier in the research. We've been interacting around microfluidic systems, trying to reproduce microorganisms, in vitro, in order to decrease the use on animal models, and try to have a better predictability on what we will see in the patient. So this is some other interest, and again, this is cutting-edge technologies, and I think the variety of expertise that we can access through the CEA is definitively responding to our need in that sense.
Okay. We'll go back to you, of course, during the roundtable, but to finish the first speech, Ramzi Temani, your scientific director, head of France AI and Genomics of Janssen. I don't think you already work with CEA, if I'm not mistaken.
Not
yes?
yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
So the point is, when you listen to these examples which are developed here, do you think something different from all the partners you have in the world that could justify finally an investment or a project with them, for example?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I'll just give the context of the AI in genomics. So it's a new initiative started by Janssen and with an ambition to invest $40 million over a period of 10 years. And the choice for AI genomics was the fact that, for instance, Paris-Saclay and Paris-Sorbonne are #1 and #3 in mathematics worldwide. So that was easy to make the bet on AI. And there's several hospitals like Institut Gustave Roussy and Curie who are in the top 50 worldwide in oncology, for instance, and that's one of the key areas for Janssen. So this kind of benchmark make it easy to try to help the partnership, because one of the first questions, I'm part of the global team. My line manager is in the US. I'm based in France. I work with the Janssen France team and also with the London Innovation Center based in London, who are looking for innovation across the EMEA region. And basically, there's a vision on the global, on the EMEA region, and on France. And the first question when I come up with the collaboration to my colleague from R&D in the US to say, we have this startup or this institute with this project is, why should we work with this institution?
That's the question.
And I think I give a bit of the answer at the end is the fact that if there is a benchmark and if some work exists to compare the current work at the European level or at the international level, that makes it easier to make the first connection. That said, we've been able in less than a year to have already first partnership with Curie Institute. We have a second one in the make. And we are also partner with the Prairie AI Institute, which is one of the 4 Center of Excellence in Artificial Intelligence. So we have to think about that competitivity at the international level. So how we could get prepared when we get this kind of question for big group, we have a part of the answer. And I think it's not only about platform, because as part of the initiative, we are looking for talent, we're looking for cohorts, we're looking for methods, and we're also looking for platform, either computational platform and technological platform. And my answer to that is the platform alone is not enough. So it's a matter of creating an entire ecosystem around the platform to make it more attractive. Because equipment can be bought by any company or place in the world that have the money. So how can we leverage that platform to show we have the know-how, we have the training, we have the researcher, we have the ecosystem? Because it's mainly applicated approach where we're trying to use the platform to answer some specific question. So how can we connect the different actors in the ecosystem together to answer those complex questions? And I think this will be my take, is really how we can create this community to work together with the COI and other research institute so we can solve this complex problem. Because I think today we cannot solve problem by ourselves as a pharma company, and nor the private institute can get to the end of the product in their side. So it's a matter of creating this ecosystem and creating those synergies.
By the way, Jean-François Mangin, you say that this ecosystem exists here in Neurospin. You can have platforms and you get, I don't know, computer engineers, mathematicians, specialists. So can you answer and can you explain how this ecosystem still exists?
Maybe I will do an analogy. You probably know that HTML is born in the CERN because there was a very specific ecosystem. And in fact, something happened here in Neurospin, and maybe you're not aware of it. I'm sure that some of your colleagues are using the library that is called scikit-learn. It's one of the most famous libraries in machine learning. It's born here in Neurospin.
Sure.
So basically, you see that this is really a place where mathematicians and computer scientists are deeply in synergy with neuroscientists and physicists. And because of that, we are aware of needs ahead of time, and maybe we are creating new tools for computer science, which should not happen here, in fact.
So you were aware of that, yes?
So there's another initiative, which is Data AI from Paris-Saclay, who are connected with you, so I'm in discussion with them as well.
Yeah, and five of the people who have an AI chair from the national program are
based in here,
including me, for instance.
So maybe I'll take it one level further on when talking about ecosystem, because basically here we're talking about the academic ecosystem. And now, if I look at it from a higher level, so how can we include pharma in the strategy boards? How can we have the starting point of the question is a question that is faced by the pharma industry or other part of the industrial world. So that is one aspect that is important. And the other aspect, what is also very important, is really how can we look at all the aspects of collaboration. Because sometimes it's easier to have a match on the scientific side, but when we come to the contracting, the situation takes a long time. So how can we onboard the administrative people, how we can onboard the IP people, how can we onboard the data privacy people? So that's a more inclusive ecosystem that on the long, on the long it will create a very easy way to come from an idea to really win-win collaboration.
My feeling is that, of course, we are not service platforms. What we are interested in is, for instance, connecting with a company like yours, for your company to build a lab here inside our ecosystem so that you just add something more and you enjoy the interaction with the different expertise you may find here. I think would be the right way to interact with people like us.
You already have this kind of collaboration?
We have this kind of labs, for instance, in Miersen. I think there's a lab of Servier, for instance. We
yes,
this kind of thing.
Servier, yeah. And what about Pfizer? Because you are connected and involved in Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. Neurospin should be a very important platform for some of your research.
Yeah, our teams are in touch with Neurospin, and of course we are looking for possibilities of collaboration. But about neuroscience, as you know, Pfizer was investing a lot in the Alzheimer's disease in the past, internally. And then, this is a good example, we decided after several failures, because it's difficult to find any new treatment innovation in Alzheimer's, we are very far to discover a good treatment to treat the patient that's suffering of Alzheimer's. Neurospin could be, of course, one of the opportunities we can have to partner to develop new drugs in Alzheimer's or in neuroscience. And this is part of our new strategy, because we decided not to cut the budget, is to externalize the budget. So our investments now are almost 100% now oriented externally, investing in platforms for neuroscience. Yeah.
Okay. We have a few questions from France and Boston. Can you give some examples of health infrastructures used in industrial projects with pharma and medtech? So, who would like to answer? I don't know. Who is in charge with this question? Who should answer? Do you have an answer for that? Maybe Christophe?
I can perhaps shortly comment on that, but I already addressed this point. I think the key issue for us is to be part of an ecosystem that brings together physicians, clinical teams, technological teams, and also industrials, especially for biomarker discovery, for diagnostic purposes. And so in this context, many of our platforms are part of, I would say, big research programs in France, but also in Europe.
I think it's for you. Have you ever used your platforms for companion imaging biomarkers for clinical research?
Yeah, we do that in two ways. Either using the outstanding machines we have here, we can do small studies very early in the process, but we also manage a national and even European platform, which is a kind of large instrument where we standardize acquisition and where we provide to clinical research some endpoints that are not used usually by CRO because they are too innovative, they are still in the labs. So we just speed up the transfer of this kind of biomarkers towards clinical research with this platform. And we work on trials with companies, but also on academic trials, because with companies, the difficulty is maybe the regulatory issue. We may be secondary endpoint, but not classical endpoints.
Regulatory issues are very specific in France, even if you may has changed a little bit the image. Is there a problem, or when you're from the US, for example, how is France considered? Isn't it a problem sometimes to really step into investments and go forward when you see what's happening, regulation, political issues? Camilo?
Yeah, that's a key issue. So that was one of the points that I want to address, because if we want to be attractive, to be because they are in competition, what said before, that with other countries, if we wanted to drive investments and to partner with such big institutions, we have to invest a lot in the quality standards. This is very important because these standards must be recognized in the United States, but also in the contracting parts, because in France it's really difficult to set a contract because there are a lot of constraints. It's much more easier to be faster to contract in other countries than in France. So I think that
it's a great limit.
Yeah, it's a big limit. So that's the reason why I think we have to invest a lot in this simplification process for contracts, and also, of course, really to be aware what are the key quality standards that are required in the United States mostly. Yeah.
Do you have the same image, complicated France?
So I'll give the bright side of it. It's true that there's complication, but usually when there's the right people who want to push it up front, things gets better, and there's solution. And again, it's sometimes also putting the right people together. So my background is more scientific. So what I need to go through the contracting part, so I bring our legal or data privacy team directly with the privacy and legal team of the partner and let them do the magic.
And what about you, Jean-Philippe Stéphane? You're French, so you know very well about the general context, but sometimes are you attracted to foreign countries to invest and to lead your projects?
Yes, we do, definitely. We are investing abroad as well. To come back to the complexity, I think there is complexity everywhere. The nature of complexity is different. That's true that we need to simplify in France. You know, I think we are the champion of why doing something simple if you can do it complex. But I think there is some other complexity. If you're looking at setting up, for example, for a French company, setting up a quite involved contract with an American institution, there is also some complexity. I think negotiating the contracts could also take a while.
So it's a matter of culture.
I think it's a matter of culture, and I completely agree with other panelists. I think if you have the right champion, this can go through definitively, despite the fact that that's true, there is some level of complexity.
You can overcome problems.
You can overcome, you know, because you have to navigate the system. So you have to know, you know, and anticipate. You have to know, in fact, what you're going to be asked for. And if you're anticipating a long time enough, you can manage it. That doesn't mean that we don't need to simplify. Don't take me wrong.
So that I wanted to add. So making things happen, what needs to be done is make them faster. So that time argument is still something to reconsider as well.
Do you work on these issues? Time to go faster, to be bigger. Do you understand the other problematics? For sure. Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, so the other questions for you. They're ready to work with you. Do you have opportunities for cooperation across the Atlantic?
There's, of course, a lot of variety. I mean, research is international, so we have plenty of collaboration across the Atlantic, yeah, for sure. With the NIH, for instance, one of the leading institutions in high-field MRI is in Minneapolis, and we have a close relationship with them.
So, for you, maybe a bit, I'd say, the beginning of a process. Do you already have some of these cooperations?
Yeah, we have some, but I would say the main challenge in this field. Perhaps is because our omics platform, I would say, in Europe, but also in the US and in America, generally speaking. And so the main challenge is to work together to make the process more mature and to make all the data we deliver more reusable and interoperable. And that has to be performed at an international level, and the United States are key for that.
Okay, another question is, is it possible to gradually define partnership topics? What we're doing right now. So do you want to add some hints or information about these partnership topics?
Yeah, I think partnership is like, it's a gradual process. It's not like something where you come and it's not outsourcing or contracting. So it's a journey where you learn about the partner, you're trying to work together. You have to build trust and transparency in the transaction with the partner. And most importantly, you have to make it win-win situation. So if someone come with an interest where the other side there's no interest, probably is not gonna last forever. So the most important is really how to work on those aspects.
Mm-hmm. Luca?
Yeah, to me, it's a question of trust first, and second is also to take risks. Because you know that when you partner with some institutions, also with some key platforms, so you do not know what will be the issue. So our culture is to invest knowing that you can fail. And this is important for us. And it's the reason why, so here, now we are one of the most developed pharma industry in the world, covering almost all the therapeutic areas, because what we want is to invest when we believe that something can be successful, but we are not sure that this will be successful. So that's the reason why we have to build this culture of the failure, because taking risks, it makes also you probably compared to the competitors also having some advantages. But you have to take a risk to invest, knowing that you can also lose the money.
It happens.
And the patients are waiting for that because, so that's the reason why. So our first, the aim of our philosophy is to bring added value for the patients where there is medical needs not covered by the current therapeutics. And you have to invest much more, so knowing that you can fail.
Do you take risks for any field, or do you focus on big issues like cancer, or are you interested in other fields which are maybe less general or less
yeah, for sure.
important?
In France, we are already investing in some platforms here. We have in some disease areas, but in the future, where we will invest the more, where we are focusing our strategies, will be mostly in rare disease, vaccines, oncology, and so why not also in neuroscience, because the medical need is very, very high.
So this is a connection, possible connection. The culture of risk, we'd say, is it something which is deeply involved in your activity to take risks, and how do you decide, okay, let's go? What's the what's the moment when you say, okay, we can go? Maybe Jean-Philippe?
Yeah, definitively. I think risk is part of our job. We are dealing with complexity. Many things that we are doing, we don't clearly have the answer. So we have to take the risk, and you have to rationalize. You know, when do you think you're ready to take it or not? So I think you have to put everything on the table. I would say to do that, to take the risk together, I agree with the other panelists, you need to build trust and proximity. And I would add that you need also to make sure that it's a well-balanced partnership. I think each parties have to get benefit in the partnership. Meaning, like the pharma, obviously, we have specific needs that are geared toward the benefit of the patient, and I think this is also the case for the expert at the CEA. But they also have to see the benefit that what the pharma can bring them in terms of finding the right application for their technology, the closest to the patients. And I think it's when you created this environment that you're ready to take the risk. And ultimately, until you get the ultimate answer, you're in the risk zone. You can de-risk as much as you want, but there is always uncertainties.
Yes, of course. Ramzi, the same?
So I think, you know, like the starting point is like we're doing research. So mainly we don't have a clear answer, otherwise we'll not be doing research. So we're trying to do an exploration. So you'll not take risk on choosing the wrong partner. So that's the first thing. You have to make sure that you have the right partner. However, there's a risk in the journey that you control to a certain extent, to put gates on the way to say where you have to stop. And the decision is not only scientific. So that's why you have to be very inclusive to include everyone in the buy-in.
Teams, who's involved?
To get to that project. So everyone is really excited about it. But then there's a continuous reevaluation process to say whether we have to stop or not. And that decision mainly can become complex, but it depends on the investment and a lot of factors. But eventually, there's always risk, but then there's always a benefit, and then you have to find the right balance.
The balance, benefits, risk. And so you take risk, you want a win-win cooperation. What about you? Are you really ready to accept everything from industry, or do you have your own criteria and sometimes some limits, and you say, no, that we can't do it, or we want to focus on French patients and not only if projects are just financed for abroad? Have you your own criteria?
Of course we have. So first of all, we have a long experience working with industrial companies. So we are perfectly aware about the risk that you take, and we know that, and so we have to deal with that. And so what our main criteria, I would say, is also the technological challenge that you propose us, because we want to address some I would say unanswered needs, and so the collaboration for us is an opportunity to develop more advanced technological research and to help you to deliver something. So that's our state of mind, and the other possibility is also to work I would say with a contract and to deliver some results, but not at a high scientific level, I would say. Mm-hmm. So everything is possible, in fact.
Okay, for you, everything is possible. Jean-François?
I don't think everything is possible, at least in Eurospin. I think we need some synergies with what is proposed. Otherwise, I don't think we would. I mean, we are not a service platform here. We are really willing to push research further in terms of neuroscience or technologies, and I don't think we would just collaborate on something which is just pressing the buttons and doing this kind of thing.
Sometimes the French academic ecosystem has some, distance with industry, and people are looking at each other with a certain despise. So, what about the CA culture about that? Do you think that sometimes it's difficult to understand each other?
It's where the CA is not comparable to maybe the stereotype view you may have of academics in France, because we are much closer to industry and we have this target too. So I think it's much easier for you to interact with people in the CA than maybe in standard CNRS labs. Yeah.
Okay. What about you?
Yeah, just a comment on this. So what is important, I discussed this discussion also with INSERM. So we know perfectly INSERM is the biggest research institute in France. So I think probably what should be good is probably to call for the pharma industry expertise, because we have some expertise that can help you. So because sometimes you work probably too much alone, and our new tools we have developed to interact with the research environment all over the world is now having a new manner to collaborate, is putting together the expertise both sides. And this, for me and for us, is the most successful way to progress. For example, we have one of these dispositifs we have. It's named the CTI, is the Center of Therapeutic Innovation. So it's something that is important because there are some medical needs, and the idea is to move faster from the research to the patient. That's important.
That's a key point. You already talked about that.
Yeah. It's important for us. It's important for the researcher. It's important for the patients.
Okay. Other questions from people connected. Are you already interested in linking technologies and data from other platforms?
Yeah, this is really something hot in the CA, trying to do multimodality, big data analysis and AI analysis, which means, of course, dealing with all the curation process and dealing with all the acquisition process. But we have some programs like that at the national level, especially in psychiatry these days. Yeah.
Nationally, not internationally yet.
Well, of course, nothing is really only national, because as soon as you deliver a large data set in a country, you just connect to the other countries to go at another scale. So.
Yeah, I fully agree with Jean-François, of course. But at CA, we have a unique opportunity we are data producer, so omics data, many omics data, also imaging, and we are also data processor. We are working on data science, and so that's, I would say, a unique opportunity to perform data integration, and that's we were talking about multi-omic, but I think it's far more than that, because we really aim to develop this integrative view and to process together clinical metadata, imaging data, and also multi-omics data. And so when I see on the screen the next key technology platform,
yeah, I was about to ask.
For me, that's the point, that how can we move to something that is more integrated, and for that we will need the data, of course, and data that are well produced, and also I would say scientists at the top in the field of data science.
So this is for you the next platform. What about you? Next platforms, what are you looking for as a performance and platforms for tomorrow, today and tomorrow?
So I might comment on this, because my PhD thesis is in data integration.
Oh.
So I think it's
so you can work with it.
Absolutely, that might be something very relevant. And again, I think today's problem, as I mentioned, are so complex. So if we come with a way that I believe there's a lot of error and trial to come to the right way, and I think it's domain specific, and it's not because you have a lot of data that you put them together that you're going to get the best results. So you have to make sure that you do the right way, the right process, the right method of integration. There's multiple one. So this might be potentially a very good subject to have a lot of brain together trying to see how to collect the right data, how to put the right metadata on the data, how to identify the right algorithm, and how to make it specific to different field, because there's no one fit all. So, and I think it's a very broad question, because we don't know what would be the next platform. I work a lot with next generation sequencing and genomics. I started in 2009. I mean, the read were so short, the quality was so poor. When you look today, they just announced a full completed genome that with the new technology and a telomere to telomere. So what tomorrow will be, it's a platform with higher precision, more depth, and a lower cost, and a speed time to results. Because still today, even the genomics is advancing, we need 48 hours to get from the sample to the data, where you can run an algorithm
too long for you.
in 30 minutes to get the results. So for me, I would wait for 30 minutes data generation and 30-minute processing.
Always quicker.
Yeah. I mean, higher quality, quicker, and cheaper.
Cheaper. Everything.
If I may add something, because I think it relates to previous discussions, data integration, totally agree. I think this is what we have to deal right now, because we know that the solution is within the data. And I would say the next step is probably better prediction capabilities. What we want to do is coming back to the risk. If you have very good prediction tools, you're decreasing the risk. So data integration is the solutions for better predictions and getting faster to the patients.
Still, always, this point for you, quicker to the patient. Luca, Mono?
Yeah, about this for us, so it's important to work on the targets of the new therapeutics, because so there are a lot of drugs, a lot of new molecules that are developed, but the key issue is now to identify what are the new targets where we can act. And this can be done, as you were saying, also with the artificial intelligence. So working these two aspects together and work very well identifying what are the targets and to develop drugs that are successful to be used in the patients. This is, for us, it's also key.
So in this perspective, phase zero and translational medicine may be helpful. And this is upcoming session. Thank you very much for you to take part to this round table. Thank you Christophe Junot, Jean-François Mangin, Lucas Mollo, Jean-Philippe Stéphan, and Ramzi Temani for participating. Thank you very much. So it's now time to step into the last part of this conference, which will be dedicated, as I mentioned, to concept of phase zero. And as we've already done for previous parts of the conference, don't get up already because you're just going through the, the camera. Thank you. We will have a short report about technological innovation for translational research with Philippe Entraille, Vincent Lebon, Roger Legrand, and Nicolas Tournier, and they will be with me just afterwards for the last roundtable.
Mersenne is a preclinical research center dedicated to the search and development of innovative therapies against Parkinson, Huntington and Alzheimer's disease. In this context, Mersenne offers a complete translational continuum of activities from in cellular models to various animal models, including non-human primates and up to phase 1-2 clinical trials. Mersenne regroups on one site at Fontenay-aux-Roses all competencies and platforms in cell, gene and drug-based therapies necessary to perform preclinical proof of concept, including viral vector production labs, motor and cognitive suites, PET imaging and high-field MRI, all operating under BCL 1, 2 and 3 conditions. In a way very similar to previous collaboration with industry, and thanks to a large combination of preclinical platforms, Mersenne can bring your molecule or your product of interest from the very first stage of development, for example in cellular proof of concept, up to a preclinical proof of concept in large animal models, and through its affiliated clinical centers up to a phase 1-2 trial. This can also be highly facilitated by interaction with the National Infrastructure of Translational Neuroscience, Neuratrice, Mersenne being its coordinating center.
CEA offers cutting-edge platforms in health technologies, including multi-omics, computing, and medical imaging. The objective of the Passerelle project is the medical translation of the technologies developed in our labs. To do this, Passerelle connects academic labs and hospitals in partnership with private companies. Passerelle Imaging is a part of this ambitious program that focuses on imaging technologies and pharmaceutical companies. Here, the objective is to make our cutting-edge imaging platforms available for pharmaceutical companies. The idea is to use advanced imaging techniques in order to accelerate and de-risk drug development. Microdosing, or phase 0, as presented by Nicolas Tournier, are an example of these techniques. The Passerelle project is subsidized by 3 national research organizations, by Paris-Saclay University and by Paris Region.
Hello everyone, my name is Roger Legrand. I am head of the IDME department, which is a research department of the Jacob Institute of Fundamental Research Division of CEA, which is also a joint research structure of INSERM and Paris-Saclay University. The ambition of the department is to innovate in treatment and prevention of human diseases resulting from infection, immunological and hematological disorders. We have an exceptional set of assets in support of this ambition. We have a strong long-term expertise in studying basic mechanisms of these diseases. We have unique capacities in France and Europe for preclinical research, including non-human primate models of human infections. Basing our research at CEA represents a strong opportunity to support our research with the development of highly advanced technologies, including multi-omics, in vivo imaging, and for bioproduction. Finally, part of our teams and facilities are located at Bicêtre University Hospital, which is critical for access to patients and develop translational medicine programs. Because our unique tools, particularly for preclinical research, IMIT department have been labeled as a national research infrastructure with a mission to offer our expertise, research capacities and technologies to academic and industrial partners in support of their vaccine or therapeutic developments. Today, we collaborate at the international level in the fields of HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis, influenza, pertussis, arboviruses, as a few examples. As an illustration of our contribution to national and international efforts, we have been significantly contributing to the COVID-19 pandemics by developing non-human primate models of this disease, allowing to test treatments and vaccines, some of which are today submitted to EU and US regulatory agencies for marketing authorization.
The CEA benefits from an expertise in radiolabeling a large variety of compounds, including small molecules and biologics, with positron-emitting isotopes. It is now possible to perform PET imaging with a larger and larger portfolio of compounds for use in animals and humans. Our team is dedicated to pharmacokinetic PET imaging. We use radiolabeled analog of new marketed drugs or new chemical entities with the same exact structure to study their distribution to target vulnerable and elimination organs in vivo. This is a fully translational approach which can be easily transferred and quickly transferred to humans. This corresponds to the concept of phase 0 PET microdosing. PET imaging is extremely sensitive and quantitative. Clinical biodistribution data can be obtained after injection of microdoses of the investigated compound. We think that human is the best model for humans. Several examples of clinical studies performed at CEA suggest that pharmacokinetic PET imaging can be performed in healthy volunteers or patients even before or parallel to the traditional phase 1.
So they were on the video and now they appeared here in live. Thank you very much to be here with us. Philippe Entraille, your research director, head of department Myrcène, CSO of the National Infrastructure Narratrice of CEA. Roger Legrand, your head of research center and immunology of viral infections and autoimmune disease and head of infection disease models for Innovate Therapies. IDMIT, it's a very important platform we're going to talk about here in CEA. Then Nicolas Tournier, your imaging pharmacologist from CEA. We just heard about you. It's very interesting, what you propose, the radiolabelization. Radiolabel, it's very interesting. We'll talk about that again. Then Vincent Lebon, you're a professor of medicine at Paris-Saclay University Hospital and head of department CEA. And this is for the CEA platform's representation. We already have a great view of what you did, but we're going deeper. And now to, to get the industry point of view, we have Jean Lang from Sanofi Pasteur, one of the greatest experts of vaccines, and you were involved in the race, and we're going to talk about that namely. And Magnus Fontes, your director at Institut Roche. Thank you to all of you to participate. Philippe Entraille. Let's start with you, and let's talk about Myrcène, which is an incredible platform. It's probably a unique tool in the world. From cell to large animals, you can go to any type from the smallest to the biggest.
Yes, actually, I got the idea of Myrcène when I was in Boston, so
it's
a strange
Hi,
story,
Boston.
but hi, Boston. And I realized there that when we were trying to develop a gene-based therapy in large animal models, we were lacking a tool in which a big building in which we could marry the imaging, the PET imaging notably, the MRI, but also the motor and cognitive assessment of this non-human primate, and all of this under confinement, biological confinement that were required. And so we built Myrcène as such to produce from in-cellular models up to preclinical animal models, rodent and non-human primate, everything necessary to try to develop and test and validate cell-based, gene-based, and obviously drug-based therapies. So this is Myrcène. It's not a molecular imaging research center only. It's a real translational preclinical center.
And yeah,
all this is combined also with strong collaboration long-lasting collaboration to more than 30 years with clinicians, colleagues that were trained in Mersenne. They were doing their PhD thesis with us, and then later on they moved to a neurosurgical or a neurological department. They were head of those departments and continue to collaborate with us.
And what is impressive is that here you had to get very specific capacities, very huge, large ones to welcome, for example, primates. So can you tell us about the capacities, facilities?
Oh, the facility is obviously a bit large, I would say, for France. It has been constructed as in a way that we could run many projects in a row, notably in non-human primates. So we have 400 primates, for example, in different conditions. So we can run up to 10 projects simultaneously in non-human primates. We also include in those capacity the possibility to run projects in rodents, of course, mouse and rats and all this stuff.
And the link with clinicians is Neuratrice?
Yeah.
You run Neuratrice?
Yeah, I run Neuratrice. That's another aspect which is interesting for industrial partner, of course, because Neuratrice is an infrastructure, national infrastructure of translational neuroscience. So dedicated to neurodegenerative disorders. And this regroup four Parisian hospitals and 3 research centers in the Paris area. So we are all together in the same geographic region, so capable of interacting very smoothly. And this Neuratrice infrastructure, which is coordinated by Mersenne and by myself.
You coordinate yourself?
And well, I try to do so. But so we have this opportunity to really run together translational projects from in cellular to clinical application, phase 1 trials.
Phase 1 trials. And you have some interactions with industry, of course, especially Sanofi, I think, but not
well,
other
It has been Sanofi for a while, and now it's more Servier,
okay,
which is hosted in Mersenne for different reasons. And actually, if I would comment what industry bring us is a kind of collaboration, trying to develop new tools that could be useful for Mersenne, for example, but also for the industrial partner. And for example, if I take the example of Servier, what we do with Servier is we do 2 things. We collaborate on building new imaging tools to serve their purposes, and we run their own project in Mersenne using these tools that we have been developing together. So they have full confidence in the tool that we are going to use because they co-develop it. And for us, it's interesting because we can publish this out of the
It's not only service, it's a cooperation.
So it's a collaboration in the first step, and then it becomes for Servier an application, of course. So that's one example of what we can do with industrial partners, of course.
Roger Legrand, I said you're head of a division, or you can take another mic as you want. You're head of a division of human virology at CA, and especially you run eDMIT platform, preclinical research on infectious diseases. Can you tell us more about this huge platform?
Well, this platform is quite similar to Mersenne, but applied to the field of infectious diseases and immunology. And our aim indeed is to increase the expertise in the preclinical domain of infectious diseases, and then to propose this expertise as a support for programs that are bringing through academic programs or industrial partnerships. And in terms of the size of the activities, so we have recently become the largest preclinical infrastructure in Europe for performing such studies.
So it means that you are very well connected to industry, and even we talked about the entrepreneurial spirit. You are connected to this spirit. You have infrastructure to help you, administrative ones. You can run like a
well, I
industry.
think that to to be in the translational activity and to be connected to the industry, what we need first, and that was already emphasized by the previous speakers, is we need the expertise and to be, and this is what the people look for. So they look the experts, and not only the facilities we have. So the facilities are very important, but if you don't have the people to run the facility and to bring something new to the company, I think this is very important. Second, we have to organize ourselves to be in a position to accept the constraints of the industrial partners in their drug development. I mean, in terms of quality assurance, what we provide, in terms of timelines. That's certainly a main issue in many academic private partnerships. And we need also to find a way to position ourselves in the whole picture of the ecosystem. When I'm saying that, is that it's very important, at least for my view in these positions, to not be in competition with the industrial partners when we are doing this partnership. We need to bring something that they don't have, and they need to be asking us something that they don't, that they are looking for. So I think that's, and this is not only an offer or a talk like today, it's also long-term work we have to do together.
It's a matter of trust.
It's much as trust. I think there are several things. I like the way that we are working with Sanofi Pasteur, for instance, at the moment, or GSK. So we have, as Philippe said, collaborative programs. So what we do with collaborative, we create the tools, we increase the expertise together in the mid-long-term programs, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And then we can enrich the knowledge. And then they will use these tools and this knowledge for their own purpose, for the development of their own drugs as a service. And this is, I think, a very good deal between us, because we are indeed producing knowledge, which is our prime mission. But we are also producing a support for the companies. We can also provide this support for academics. And then I think what is also very important is that by doing this, we create a proximity between the scientists of the industrial partners and ourselves. Because it's not just a command and from our side providing a quotation of what we can do or whatever. At some point, when we do some kind of collaboration, we have common ideas. We share our expertise, we share our ideas, and we can elaborate a strategy for the future. And I think this term of strategy, this is more or less what was lacking during pandemic situation here in France.
By the way, as you talk about the pandemics and the COVID, you have another project which is Gaston Ramon Institute.
Yeah.
And I think this would be interesting to talk about it with you, Jean, because I think you have your idea about that. But it is about vaccine developments. Can you tell us just a few words about Gaston Ramon?
Thank you very much for this question, because Gaston Ramon is still a project at the moment. But actually, this is the idea, is to really try to stick to what I was saying recently, what we need or what we learn from the pandemic, that we have an ecosystem, which could be excellent ecosystem, but we have some gaps. These gaps are more or less identified right now. For instance, for bioproduction, we don't have enough bioproduction capacities in Europe. That's for once. The other thing we lack, I think, is the organization of this ecosystem as a pipeline. So we need to make this ecosystem agile. And how we can do this how we can make this economic agile is by connecting the bricks. So people who are doing upstream research need to know what's happened downstream in the preclinical world, in the clinical world, in the bioproduction, so that they can anticipate what the constraints for the bioproduction, where they design the antigen, for instance. This is very well known in the industrial area. But these people need to be connected, so they need to be all together. And we need a kind of common process management to transfer the activity from one part to another very agilely, in days or weeks, and not in months or years. And this is very important. And this is what Gaston Ramon will try to perform if we succeed to get this project, is to really try to organize, connect, and then offer this organization as a support for the companies. The other objective of the Gaston Ramon is to try to respond to the
strategic needs of France in developing vaccines, for instance, in the fields where the marketing is not going. So molecules or instruments or vaccines that are not covered by the market.
Tuberculosis for adults, for example?
Well, tuberculosis could be one example because tuberculosis is probably a very difficult vaccine to perform. So it's not easy for a company, even a large company, to invest a lot of money without a visibility in the returns of this strategy. So I think here the public-private partnership takes all the essence of what we can do. But there are other fields, for instance, anticipating the emergencies in terms of infections. So you need to risk or bet on a class of pathogens. So it's not always easy to produce a vaccine that will stay in the garage and will not be able to sell it. But we need this, and we need to demonstrate that this vaccine can be produced at least at a small scale, and we need to demonstrate how we will organize a scale-up if in case of needed. And the other field of illustration is that, for instance, the bioterrorism threats, we need some vaccines for bioterrorism threats. And there is, I think it's not the mission of the large company to really work on this unless they have large companies.
Bioterrorism.
But we can prepare that in an area, in an institute like Gaston Ramon, in order to be prepared and then transfer to the companies when the threat is coming.
Okay, we'll go back to this institute project, namely with Jean Lang, who's very much involved in vaccine development. But Nicolas Tournier, first, you are imaging pharmacologist here, and you developed your activity during the video, which is very interesting. We go back to the spirit, I'd say, of this roundtable, which is translational medicine, but also phase zero. And you are very connected to this idea of phase zero. Can you tell us what is phase zero for you, and how do you help to go quicker, faster? This is a motto that we have since the beginning of the day, and to be quicker on patients. Can you tell us?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I come from the PK, the DMPK, and I learned a lot from the PK before coming to the imaging community. And the first people I met in the CA were radiochemists. There's a long history of radiochemistry in the CEA. And they have fluorine chemistry, but also carbon chemistry. And most of the drugs can be radiolabeled. So imaging in most situations is dedicated to one target. Can be a virus, an infected cell, can be a neuron, for instance. But I think the drug can be the focus of the imaging if you radiolabel it, and you can gain very early clinical data. And we are lucky to work in a center where imaging can be performed in animals and humans. And the phase zero design allows for quick transfer because it's microdoses, so the regulation is very open and lighter than conventional phase one. So I think phase zero, when possible, provides a shortcut to go from the very early and sometimes in vitro data
because
to clinical.
Microdose on the whole body and not only in a blood sample. You can have a very early view of its action. That's it.
You don't really have a view of this of the action because the dose you inject do not have effect. Yeah. It's mainly distribution to tissues, but when used for PET imaging, you have distribution not only in the blood but also in target tissue, vulnerable tissues.
So this is what you're looking for.
Exactly.
And this procedure, this platform service, do you already have some industrialists involved?
Not so much in France, but I think there's a community that is building in the world on the concept of phase zero. Many researchers from academic and industry talk together because it's not well accepted yet in most in the normal and conventional development of new chemical entities.
Why?
I think it's only habits, and it's not always possible. It's very important that it is possible in some specific situation where radiolabeling is possible. But when it's not possible, you have to go the conventional way. But when it's possible, in my opinion, it's a unique opportunity to select one compound, go quickly to go-no-go decision, and earn time.
Okay, so we'll go back to you too, and we'll ask if you're interested in this phase zero approach in a few minutes. But Vincent Lebon, to finish talking about the platforms and CA. So you're a kind of synthesis of various platforms we talked about. EDMIT, Mersenne, here present, Neurospin, we talked about, through Passerelle. What is Passerelle exactly? What do you do exactly? I remind that you're a professor of medicine at Paris-Saclay, head of department CA, and you called it this Passerelle platform. What is it?
Thank you, Fabrice. So I think clearly CEA offers unique platforms for biomedical research, as you said, Mersenne, EDMIT, Neurospin, SHFG, outstanding platforms and devices for biomedical research. Our challenge is really to bring those tools to patients and hospitals, because we are far from patients and hospitals, let's say. So I think this really is the main objective of the Passerelle project, is to connect, to transfer, to translate our technological developments to patients and medicine. And for this, the idea is to create an ecosystem, and I think this is a direct answer to the comment by Ramzi Temani from Janssen, just the previous roundtable, who was requesting the building of ecosystems, but not only academic ecosystems including industrial partners and hospitals. And that's exactly what we want to do through the Passerelle project, is to connect the three partners that are academic platforms, industrial partners, and hospitals. And that's the main purpose of the Passerelle project, which is supported.
So you recruit patients and you are in clinical issues, that's it?
We actually federate networks of hospitals in the Paris-Saclay region. We connect them with the academic labs and platforms. And we also work on developing the interactions and the collaborations with the industrial partners, because any innovation and development will never reach or spread to patients without the input and the contribution of industrial. So within the large project, which is Passerelle, which is a project which is strongly supported by CEA, of course, but also by the university and other national research organizations, we have a specific program focusing on medical imaging and on drug development. And this program really starts with the conviction that our advanced medical imaging techniques provide invaluable information to accelerate and de-risk drug development. So we've been starting working on this program with industrial partners too, and the idea is really to set up a new paradigm for these collaborations between our academic platforms, imaging platforms, as we said, Mersenne, EDMIT, Neurospin, SHFG on one hand, and with drug companies on the other hand, to open our platform to accelerate those developments. So we'll work on developing a new governance paradigm, governance of the platforms, including or integrating industrial partners, developing also a clear offer of imaging services for the industrial partners that can be accessed by or throughout a single point of contact, which is something really important. We are 4 different platforms, and I think unique access for industrials is something really crucial, and easy access. And finally, we're also working on a dedicated high-level training for the industrial partners who sometimes have difficulties to really understand the potential, but also the limitations of our advanced technologies.
Okay.
It's really a brief summary about Passerelle.
Training for you, Jean Lang. Maybe you will be trained. You're Associate Vice President Global R&D within the New Vaccines Project Department of Sanofi Pasteur. And you must be listening to this conference with a great ear, because you want a virtuous circle and to put together academics, agencies, and industrials.
Yeah, let me first acknowledge the organizer because it's a great pleasure as a private sector scientist. I'm a scientist, I'm an MD too, to meet the colleague from the public sector. I've been trained to be a public health official. Now I'm in the private sector, but we are scientists driven by science, quality, and timeline and investment, of course, because we are in the private sector. And why do we collaborate with CIA and Roger Legrand in particular? It's not because he's French and I'm French, it's because he's one of the best team in the world. And we as a global company, as an R&D company, we need to pick up the best talent, the best brain, and they need to be a joint value proposal, project proposal. We are not doing that for the sake of investing in CIA or CIA to invest in Sanofi, but because together we can bring value, and value is really the guide, the key performance indicator we want to achieve together. And looking at Roger's platform, it's unique, it's competent, it's quality-based, it's timely, it's efficient. What we are looking for in translational science and vaccine, which are prodrugs, elicit immunological response, are driven by translational medicine because, as you probably know, there are plenty of vaccines very, very efficacious for mice, but the problem is that they are not working in humans. And by the way, that was, you know, the fact that mRNA vaccine wasn't working was not a slam dunk at the beginning. There was a lot of iteration, but when we saw the translational monkey data and NHP data, we were convinced that there was somewhere provided there will be translatability. So what are we looking at this model, working with CIA in particular, because we are looking for several parameters. Number one is to fast to fail or candidate. So we don't want to invest into a vaccine that will fail later on in phase 3, as occurred, for example, in our Clostridium difficile vaccines.
Yes, unfortunately.
So that will really help us. And number two, it's fast to win. So we are reassured because we want to generate in the vaccine area biomarker. We want to generate efficacy, safety, and immunogenicity biomarker. We want to down-select candidate because we, as you know, it's a combination of adjuvant for some time and antigen. And last but not least, we want to decrease our granularity to understand the interactions between age, between pregnancy, for example, which can be achieved in the NHP model, in this rare human model. And that all that, the translational science, the phase 0, will help us to de-risk. And we have one very concrete example I just alluded to, it's mRNA. Everyone is investing, and we are heavily Sanofi investing in mRNA. We have invested 400 million euros, 400 people in this mRNA. And we are working
right at the beginning, like Pfizer or Moderna, for example?
Not right at the beginning. We were investing in a platform in T-Bio and in the COVID-19 vaccine antigen. But then we realized that BioNTech, because that's Pfizer is a BioNTech vaccine, and Moderna were far advanced, and we need to have a differentiating offer that what we are bringing to the table with the subunit adjuvanted vaccines.
Did you think that the problem that happened with your vaccine at the beginning was connected to what you talked about, the environment, to the ecosystem, sometimes difficult to work together and to be really connected?
In fact, we were connected to the ecosystem, and as you know, when the third partner, the third pillar of the vaccine, besides Sanofi vaccine and GSK, was BARDA, the US BARDA. And it was a good line to criticize BARDA because the US paid, but this is remarkable. And in fact, Ursula von der Leyen realized that we lacked that instrument in Europe and maybe in France. And what Roger envisioned and we envisioned together.
You want to make a European BARDA?
Not me. The European Commission has already set up the principle against
cross-border. But you're a great supporter of that.
Yeah, it's called ERA, Health European Preparedness and Response Authority, like BARDA. Biomedical Advanced R&D Authority. So we have that, we have the principle. It's a new directorate in Brussels, so it's far advanced. Now we have to fuel it by public-private partnership model. And what we need to build now, the next step for France, I'm calling as a French scientist, we need to build this capacity with NRS, maladies infectieuses émergentes, IASDA, IASDAN-PANA. And Institut Gaston Ramon could be a part of that, focus at some technology with VRI from INSERM. But we need to think broader than that and build the biocluster, the infectious disease biocluster between Lyon and Paris. Where together we build a critical mass and we think beyond our own silo. I'm a private sector scientist, I'm a public sector scientist, because what joins us together is to achieve competitiveness. And for the first time in ERA and IHI, the new public-private partnership in Europe, you have the word, make Europe competitive, together. And that the shared visions I would like to develop, and CR and Sanofi will be an integrated part of that.
Okay, that's pretty clear. And we'll go back to this idea because I think you must be very interested in it, of course, Roger Legrand. Magnus von Tess, you have your point too about translational medicine and especially reverse translation paradigm. And you have, I think, 1 million patients around the world in clinical trials. And you want to share this view.
Yeah, I can echo what Nicolas Tournier said a while ago. I mean, a very good model for human disease is human disease, and yeah, and obviously it's not the only tool, but it's very important for us now, and we can look at what is happening in immuno-oncology as an example. So around the world, as you said, there are around 1 million patients in a lot of different clinical trials involving immunomodulation. And this is, of course, quite unique in the history of health, and we are actually actively modulating the immune system and measuring what is happening. So we will not only learn about cancer and the particular patients, we will learn in general around the immune system. So this is what we hope. So a lot of fundamental knowledge around the immune system, we hope, will evolve from this. And I think an important aspect here is also and I think some low-hanging fruits, both for academia and for industry, for all partners in this ecosystem, are longitudinal sampling. So when we look at disease and health, it's a dynamical thing. It changes over time, and often we only have snapshots. We have one snapshot. Maybe when the patient came into the clinic, we go fairly deep. We have a tumor biopsy. We blood draws, everything we can do at that moment, but we often lack the longitudinal following. And it's a dynamical change. And I think that just doing some dynamical modeling and really following the time course, there is low-hanging fruits to pick. We might find new biomarkers that can lead us also to new targets and also advance, I mean, the understanding of immune systems and health in general. So I'm quite excited to be alive at this time point.
Great. It's optimistic and positive. What about the platforms you heard about and the help that could be for you?
This is key, of course. I mean, if we even so, I work for Roche, and we have a very big internal ecosystem. But even in our areas of high value, we represent a little part of what is done in the world. So we need to work as an ecosystem, engage with partners, and there are multiple aspects here. Of course, there are platforms that will help us to get data and the quality here is key. I mean, crap in, crap out. This is always what happens when you do data analysis. So we need really good data, but we need to set up what kind of data we actually collect. This is, of course, very important. So we need the field's expert, both maybe internal experts from I mean, biotech and health industry, but also academics, that we together map out what kind of measurements we want to do. And then we need those measurements. And then we need to work together also in this public-private interface when we do the analysis. We need field expertise as well as computational expertise. I would say that the targets for us has not changed. We want to understand biology, we want to help patients, but the tools we have are advancing rapidly, so that is what's changing.
Thank you. A few questions before the end of the round table, because we had a great view of all what you're doing, but there was this question of biocluster and infectiology. What do you think of it, Roger Legrand?
Well, I think there are, at the moment, different initiatives and inspirations for trying to prepare the future and how to face this competitiveness, of course, but not only for the market, also against the pathogens. And that's what happened with the pandemics. We were not prepared enough, so we need to be fast because we want to control fast also the pathogen. And I think these different initiatives are very complementary each other, actually, because we need a driving force for the companies, that's for sure, and for the private sector. There will no vaccine delivered to the world or for mass vaccination without the private company. This is not, we cannot imagine that. On the other hand, we need also driving force for the strategy of France or the Europe, and we need to connect these. And I think all these initiatives are responding to the same purposes. This is what we can drive by the companies, what can be bring by the academics, and how we can connect each other. So he was talking about bioclusters. We were talking about an institution, Ramon Institute, but these are not competitive entities. They are really focusing on complementing targets.
Complementary. You agree with that. A few questions coming from you, connected in France and from Boston. I think you've already started answering to that question, but do you have any international connections already in phase 0? I think it's already the case.
We have academic connections, international in Europe, inside Europe, with Vienna in particular. We have a phase 0 design study with patients that are difficult to include, and so we do B-centric using exactly the same methodology in both centers. It goes twice faster. And we also worked with an academic lab in the US, wanted to validate in vitro models from human data. They were studying liver transporters, and so they used our imaging data as a gold standard to validate the in vitro model.
Okay, there is this interesting question which is very open. What are you missing that we can provide? So I think it must be from Boston somewhere. I don't know if from the US, or do you need something? Yes, Philippe Entraille.
Yeah, maybe I can answer that question, or at least give what I think we are missing. We are missing actually good ideas to test for with partners that are interested in these ideas. We need also new targets, maybe. We are mostly interested in developing biomarkers, mostly early stage biomarker. And of course, we know we are looking at the pathologies, and in Mersenne we are more interested in neurodegenerative disease. And doing so, I think it's very important for us to see what are the kind of target that are interesting the industrial partners to be able to develop those biomarkers either by PET or by MRI actually, and test if they are really predictive and early, I would say. Looking at early neurodegeneration is a key issue when you want to do neuroprotection, for example.
Okay, thank you. We have 3-4 minutes left. Do you have a one-stop shop for contracting? Vincent Lebon, I think you have an answer.
Yeah, I think it refers to the idea of a single point of contact for contracting with cellular imaging platforms.
Okay.
This is clearly a priority for us, and we are actually working on a quality certification of the one-stop shop process for our platforms. So yes, very soon, coming soon.
Coming soon, okay. It's
certified.
Okay. The last question we have, there are other questions. Thank you very much for participating. Do you practice open data? So it's for all of you, and especially in industry. Magnus.
So the answer is, I think that we have seen examples here of when we work together in a pre-competitive space, and all big companies engage in this. So basically, we build value together. Often this results in a lot of open publications, but then every partner brings with them value that they can develop internally. So this has to be done it's a collaboration, but everyone benefits. It has to be regulated, but it's absolutely doable.
Okay.
Yeah, usually in the large European public-private partnerships or American public-private partnership, we define from the beginning legally who is on the data, who the data will be sensitive, because some need to be protected, but the basis is that you bring the data, you bring the value, you own the data, and you can share largely.
Okay, and we have a last question. Just time is nearly over. Do you have a strategy in cancer, rare diseases, and autoimmune diseases? It's a very open, wide question. Somebody wants to answer quickly about that?
Obviously, the answer, I think, for all big pharma companies is yes, we do.
I agree.
We think carefully about this in collaboration with a lot of external partners. And it is about what kind of measurements we make, and how we sample, how we create data, and how we analyze that data. And we always have clear questions in mind. So the answer is yes.
Yeah, for rare disease and autoimmune disease, I could even include neglected topical disease. This is a share value project we need to achieve through mainly public-private partnership and push and pull incentive that could de-risk the collaboration.
Thank you very much for your participation. Philippe Entraille, Roger Legrand, Nicolas Tournier, Vincent Lebon, Jean Lang et Magnus Fontes. Merci à vous. Vous pouvez regagner vos places parce qu'on va directement enchaîner avec la fin de cette conférence. Merci, vous pouvez les applaudir. You can applause. I was switch in French. I don't know. Okay, so thanks a lot for participating, and you can applaud from Boston too if you want. This is the end of this conference, and we have a few concluding remarks and a word from the organizers. And thank you very much, Marco Fiorini, your General Manager of the Health Industry Alliance for Research and Innovation, ARIS, and Nora Benabiles, Deputy Director in charge of Innovation, Valorization and Startup Creation at CEA. You both worked a lot for this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. We are a team. Just a few words to thank a lot Monsieur l'Administrateur Général, Elsa Cortijo, Nora Benabiles, who is largely in charge and coordinated this day. And also a huge thanks to all my friends and colleagues from industry and academia. This learning expedition is a first, so now it's in your hand. Please follow it up and make some beautiful partnerships who will change the patient lives. Thank you a lot.
Very briefly, thank you very much. We do really hope that you enjoyed this journey with us, and so that it will create new partnerships and at least curiosity to come and to see what we can provide to you in various aspects in R&D, in pharma and medtech. So I would really thank special thanks to ARIS Alliance and to Marc Bonneville and to Marco Fiorini, to Olivier Bogilot and the boards of ARIS, because we built this project together with you. Thank you very much. We had a lot of discussion. Thanks also to the principal investigators in the CEA who worked a lot also to make this day happen. I would also like to thank the CEA chairman and also Elsa Cortijo, and also the technique and all the people who make the work today. So thank you very much. And let's keep contact to follow up on this day, because it's important now to keep contact and to see how we can build together partnerships.
Thank you very much, Nora. Thank you, Marco, for these words. And now it's time for the concluding remarks. And Marc Bonneville, you're chairman of the ARIS Alliance, so it's up to you to give us a few words about what you heard today.
Yes, so thanks for all of you who are still here, which is kind of unexpected.
Oh yes, sorry.
Please.
Mike.
So first of all, naturally, I would like to congratulate the organizer of this first learning expedition that has offered us a particularly rich and diverse program. So clearly, the pitches and footages on the major technological platform and breakthrough approach that are implemented by CEA were quite impressive. And this has enabled us to really discover the quality, the diversity, the transdisciplinarity of the approach that are implemented here. So clearly, I insist on this common point of many of these advances and achievements, which is the transdisciplinarity. This is more and more key now for all innovation, as you can realize clearly in the context of, for instance, digital health. We need to put together experts in biology, biomathematics, biostatistics, engineers, and so on. And clearly, I think that clearly the ecosystem here creates this kind of...
Mark, Mike.
Yeah, sorry. create this kind of opportunity to help all these experts to work together. So I think that the roundtable discussion were particularly interesting because I think that this format not only allowed to highlight key platforms that were nicely described, and clearly we can clearly envisage through the description of this very ambitious platform that rely on cutting-edge technology, what is their actual and potential interest for industry. And I think that this is, I was really impressed by all these platforms relying not only on highly sophisticated imaging technique, in particular all these very powerful MRI devices, but also on all the other platforms that are more ecosystems than platform, and that really bring a set of experts, but also the opportunity to get access to very powerful data sets and all the integration capabilities that can be offered by the CA. And clearly, I think that this roundtable discussion really gave the opportunity to CA to really explain what is their added value, what they can offer to the industry. And I think that this is the kind of format that we should keep in future edition of Learning Expedition, because I think it's probably the best way to really establish this dialogue between industrial and academic partners. So I think that I will stop here because I'm talking too much.
No.
But
okay.
Clearly,
Perfect.
I think that really I would like to congratulate in particular Marco and Nora, who started these discussions about 2 years ago, just before the sanitary crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that at this stage, from what I understand, the format that was initially envisaged was a quite standard one. Basically, on-site visit of platforms by groups of industrial. And I would say, thanks to the COVID crisis, Marco and Nora really had to envisage various options, hybrid, virtual, finally, going back to in person, and then going back to hybrid. And so these twists and turns allowed the project to really mature, to become even more ambitious, and probably much more interactive than we initially anticipated. And clearly, I think that the outcome is clearly this meeting of today, which I feel is a real success. And based on this success, the ARIS really want to make this learning expedition a very important pillar of its animation activities. And I hope that we will have the opportunity to do this again with CA, which has many other assets, in particular in the Grenoble area, and also naturally with other major academic research partners in France. So thank you for your attention, and really congratulations again for the organizers.
Thank you very much, Mark. And now it's time for the last concluding remarks. So you introduced the conference, and now you're invited to conclude. François Jacques, chairman of the CEA, thank you to join us running on the stage. Thank you very much.
Be reassured, I try to keep it short. Everything was said basically by Marc Bonneville, so my task is easier. I started saying that was an expedition. If you say expedition, it means discovery. I hope you are not disappointed and that you discovered a lot. Basically, I think you could realize what is or are the dedication, the commitment, the enthusiasm of all the PI here in CR, and I really want to pay tribute to that. Second takeaway, I would say, well, you've seen, or I hope so, many assets, but some of the participants also told us that, well, having nice platforms, having at the forefront platform, that's not enough. We have to have the platform, but we have also to have the ecosystem. We have also to build the relationship around the ecosystem. And I think we take the lesson, and that's clearly the direction we are working in. Maybe also we were reminded that we have to take risk. And I'm in that case pretty convinced that that is exactly what we are making, because the people who decided Neurospin 10 or 12 years ago, I guess they took risk. I'm not quite sure that we would be able to take the same risk today, so the world has changed around us, but clearly, yes, that's of the essence for such a research organization to take risk. And finally, we were reminded that, well, that's very nice. We discovered many projects. We discussed among scientists, researchers, engineers, and so on. But that's not the reason why a research program will emerge tomorrow morning. So how do we do that? And again, trust was, I think, the word mentioned by many, and trust is clearly something we are doing step by step. And we all know that there is no single solution to solve all the issues that were mentioned during the roundtables, because we all know that it's complicated to work between research and industry and so on. And especially in France, where we're discussing this issue for 60, 70 years, or I don't know, that started in the 50s probably. But I think what was shown by Vincent Lebon in terms of Passerelle as a place where we have this convergence of various actors, that's clearly what we are aiming at, and I hope this expedition is the first step in this step-by-step approach and is this building of trust between the various partners. So I conclude thanking a lot, as Marc did, the organizers, because I think that was not so easy to organize for the reason he explained. And I hope we have been able to interest you. And in any case, again, thanks to them, because that was not easy to achieve, and they did it so well. So thanks.
Thank you very much, François-Jacques. And thank you to all of you for keeping connected during this conference. Maybe there will be, you heard another one, and maybe other ones, other learning expeditions in the future, so you can keep posted on the internet, especially on the LinkedIn, Iris LinkedIn. You will have some more information in the coming months for next operations. And I thank Maiten, I thank Iris, of course, and ML Communication, who was in charge of filming, and it was a great success. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to all of you, and see you soon. Bye-bye.